What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories. Too High Chapter 26. What do you think this is? Joel stood on the deck and flicked his cloak, shaking off all the fine water droplets on his clothes. The Liang Kue Dao Wajo in his hand also shattered section by section under this extremely domineering force, leaving only the handle. The trick that had not been used for a long time was released again, and Joel couldn't help but think about the past time. More than 100 years ago, he once entered the Kingdom of Giants, Elbaf. There, he followed the strongest giant warrior at that time and learned the killing move that was only suitable for the giants, the Spear of Elbaf, which was powerful in the country. Then, he integrated the Devil Fruit ability with this move and refined it day after day to form a unique attack. Now that I think about it, it was a very difficult time. It seems that it's still not enough. After coming back to his senses, Joel whispered softly, and then returned the flower stade to Toshigi very gentlemanly. Okay, give it back to you. Thanks. Toshigi, whose vision was blurred, quickly spread his hands, took the handle of the knife solemnly, and then put the glasses he had just taken off back on. Wait, where did the knife and the blade go? For a moment, she froze on the spot. Joel walked to the bow of the ship and looked calmly at the Gulu sailing away, as well as the caribou people standing on the deck waving constantly. I didn't expect that a pirate as powerful as you would hang out with these guys. Smoker stood next to Joel and followed Joel's gaze. I never said that I was a pirate, this is just your Marine's wishful thinking. Joel looked indifferent. Of course, pirate or anything else, to me, it's just a boring label. What exactly is your purpose? Even after accepting the life-saving grace, Smoker's tone did not improve at all, and he still used his usual tone of questioning when interrogating pirates. Joel said, I just suddenly remembered something that was left on a certain island. I just need you to take me to that island. Is it just that simple? Of course not, knew it. Smoker sneered, pirates are pirates, what else do you want to use us for? He looked at Joel, and his instinct told him that things were not that simple. This is not the other party's true thoughts, the other party must have a deeper conspiracy. Remember to serve me a cup of hot black tea and a breakfast sandwich at 7 o'clock every morning. By the way, I will also add an omelette and a sausage. They must also be given to me before 11 o'clock at noon and 6 o'clock in the evening. Prepare meals for one person. Joel smiled slightly and said, I'm used to resting before 12 o'clock in the evening, so I hope you won't make any noise then. Smoker's eyes twitched slightly. Advertisement. Is it really that simple? Also, what kind of character would have such an idea? Does he regard this warship as his sea hotel and Marine as his waiter? Although he was complaining in his heart, Smoker didn't show much surprise on his face. Even he didn't know why he could keep his face straight after hearing this. Is that all? By the way, I need a separate room. In addition to black tea, there should be Coke on your ship, right? Remember to put a cup in my room. Joel finished speaking calmly. No more. After hearing nothing more, Smoker looked at Joel in disbelief. This was not the answer he wanted to hear at all. We clearly have the power to dispose of this warship at will, but why do we have to make meaningless disguises to hide our true purpose? It won't be that simple, you can make arrangements for the rest, Joel said with a gentlemanly smile. I get it, I will do what you say. Smoker took a deep breath and suppressed the doubts in his heart. At this moment, the bespectacled girl's reflex arc finally turned back, and she walked towards the bow of the ship with grief and anger. Hey, you guy, you destroyed this Wajo. Do you hear its cry? It's crying that it fell into the hands of evil people like you? Toshigi. Smoker stepped forward and stopped the extremely impulsive girl. Don't cause trouble. But tears flowed down Toshigi's eyes. This knife is dead. But we all survived, Smoker said expressionlessly. Toshigi choked for a moment and was speechless. Not paying any attention to the quarrel behind him, Joel calmly stared at the horizon in the distance. The dense cumulus clouds dispersed in all directions like defeated soldiers, and beams of sunlight penetrated the clouds and fell on the sea, reflecting a few sparkling waves. A rare rainbow. He lamented that once upon a time, he had witnessed similar scenery with others, but the deceased died like this. Everything is over. Breakfast arrived as scheduled at 7 o'clock in the morning, and Joel chewed it carefully. Sure enough, it was too reluctant to let Caribou, a sailor without much cooking experience, act as a chef. Professional things should still be done by professionals. Advertisement. Although the cooking taste is not that good, with the red brick of caribou in front, this staple food is more or less beautiful. Joel still rated the food quite well. After slowly taking a sip of black tea, he looked at Smoker in front of him. How are you? Have you found the permanent pointer? The destination of this trip is the Yag Islands located on the west side of the first half of the Grand Line. The location of this island is different from the direction in which the Guru is heading. Without a permanent pointer, searching for the island in the sea will be a meaningless waste of effort and time. But as long as Marine's huge system is used to operate, traveling to the Yag Islands will be much easier. That's exactly what Joel was thinking. The G37 branch located in the Gaia Sea should be able to provide corresponding permanent pointers. Smoker said expressionlessly, we have to go there first. Really? I understand, let's go to the G37 branch first. Joel nodded. Smoker paused, do you believe what I said? Why don't you believe it? Joel said calmly, Are you going to abandon the lives of this boatload of soldiers in order to deal with me? There were no threatening words in his words, but there was a hint of threat in every word. Would the prestigious White Hunter do such a thing? At the end, Joel added another sentence, with a hint of joking in his eyes. You were right. Smoker creaked a chair placed in front of him. He was very unhappy with the words, but he had no way to fight back, so he had to vent his emotions in this way. Correct. Looking at Smoker's back walking towards the door, Joel said politely, please bring me a copy of the recently published newspaper. Listening to the voice behind him, Smoker felt a little angry as he walked out of the room. Even if the world government did something that dissatisfied him, he would dare to rebuke the other party, but now, he had to obey the words of a pirate. Smoker Commodore, are we really secretly poisoning you? Around the corner, Toshigi asked weakly. In fact, she didn't really want to do such a moral thing. What kind of poison are you using? Do we have such poison that can cause death? Have you never considered the consequences of failure? Or do you want everyone to be buried with you? Smoker roared angrily, then waved his cloak and strode away. Toshigi curled his lips and said with a hint of grievance. What? It's obviously what you just said, and it wasn't my idea. Chapter 27 Fishing Never Air Force. There is no wind or waves on the sea, which is a rare tranquility in Grand Line. It was in this calm belt-like tranquility that Joel stood on the deck of the warship, hanging his fishing rod leisurely. The fishhook and the fishing line plunged into the stagnant sea surface. Joel doesn't really like fishing, he is just enjoying this life. After all, during that time 100 years ago, he was practicing self-cultivation all the time, exercising his hockey and devil fruit abilities. How difficult it was during that time, and how relaxed and comfortable he is now. Smoker took the fishing rod, walked to Joel, threw the hook down with a blank expression, and then stood there silently. Soldiers patrolled back and forth on the deck. The navigator observed the slightly swinging sails and judged the risks. The lookouts looked at the sea ahead conscientiously. Everyone was performing their duties, except for Smoker, who was surrounded by a slightly awkward atmosphere. I don't think I've ever seen Mr. Smoker fishing. Yeah, obviously I can't even swing the club. His approach is still as blunt as ever. When the two patrolling soldiers passed by Smoker, they lowered their heads and walked around 5 or 6 meters before whispering. Smoker twitched the corner of his mouth and glared at the two of them from afar, scaring them so much that they quickly walked away. Whoosh! Joel quickly lifted the fishing rod and threw a fresh sea fish into the bucket beside him. Seeing this, Smoker also lifted up the fishing rod, but there was nothing underneath. He put the fishhook into the sea again, and then said expressionlessly. Baron, the Marine Base commander of the G-46 branch, was killed by you, right? So what? Joel said casually. Smoker's heart skipped a beat. Although he had inferred something in his mind, he didn't expect Joel to admit it so frankly. He had always been dissatisfied with Baron's character and actions, but after all, he was an official senior colonel awarded by the Naval Headquarters, and his ability was worthy of recognition. Killing Colonel Naval Headquarters will make you bear a very serious crime. You will be pursued endlessly by Marine. Smoker turned his head and looked into Joel's eyes. Even in today's elite Marine battalion, the outstanding seeds cultivated every year may need 10 or even decades of training before they have a chance to be promoted to the position of colonel in the headquarters. And it is difficult to rise to the level of general. A colonel like Balin, who was personally taught by Zephyr and has been in charge of one side for many years, is just one chance away from being promoted to the position of Commodore by the world government at any time, and will continue to rise. Such a backbone of Marine died at the hands of a pirate who didn't even have a reward list. Advertisement. This only made Marine take it seriously. Just a Marine colonel. Joel lifted the fishing rod, and a big fish that kept swinging its tail splashed dense water droplets in the air, then parabolically fell into the bucket on the deck. His tone sounded like he was talking about a trivial matter, not even as important as the fish at the moment. After not seeing the look he wanted to see, Smoker turned his head back in disappointment and raised the fishing rod in his hand to the top of the sea. He still didn't see even a shadow of a living creature. He continued. What you said is a bit arrogant. Even though he knew that with the opponent's strength, it might not be difficult to kill a naval headquarters colonel, he still couldn't hold back the retort. Do you know how many fish you have eaten? Joel raised the pole, and 2 sea fish were thrown up one after another. After fluttering in the air for a few times, they fell into the bucket. He put away the fishing rod unhurriedly, walked towards the cabin, and said, That's it for today. Remember to ask the chef to help me steam these fish for dinner. Also, your fishing skills are terrible. This be ***********. D. Smoker held the wooden pole in his hand tightly. He didn't know whether he was being compared to a fish or was being ridiculed for his fishing skills. He felt inexplicably angry. Ripples suddenly appeared on the sea surface, and the fishing rod trembled slightly. It's just something as simple as fishing. Maybe you will be the one who is treated as a fish one day. Smoker looked at Joel's back and said coldly, and suddenly lifted the fishing rod as if to vent his dissatisfaction. A huge boot that glistened in the sun was thrown onto the deck and rolled around twice. This movement made the soldiers patrolling on the deck stop and look over. Smoker looked at the boot and fell silent. Smoker Commodore, it's really good. A soldier with 1 foot exposed ran over in 2 steps, blinking excitedly. I accidentally slipped just now and slipped my boots into the sea. I was worried about how to get them back. You really helped me a lot now. Hello. Smoker's eyes twitched slightly as he looked at the soldier. How on earth can one of the boots fly away? Moreover, the color of the boots you caught is obviously not the same style as the ones on your feet. Advertisement. Even if you want to help me out, you should be prepared to be more serious. Feeling the constant gazes, his expressionless face seemed to be burning. The phone rang for a long time and was finally answered. Colonel Hina, this is Naval Headquarters Ensign Toshigi under Smoker Commodore. The girl with glasses was huddled in the corner of a small room somewhere in the cabin, looking around nervously, for fear that someone would come in. It's Sister Toshigi, there's no need to be so formal. The voice on the other side of the phone was very calm and kind. Just tell me if you have anything. Did you catch the pirate who killed Balin? Colonel Hina, please lower your voice. We're in a very dangerous situation now. Toshigi lowered his voice and said in an extremely serious tone, if that guy accidentally hears it, the consequences will be disastrous. The phone bug was obviously stunned for a moment. What happened? Toshigi immediately stuck behind the door, listening intently like a thief to the footsteps of an unknown person in the corridor. After the sound disappeared, he whispered, we have been hijacked. Did the pirate who killed Balin kidnap you? Hina quickly reacted. Yes, and he's probably looking for me right now. We'll have to cut a long story short. The girl had never done such a thing before, and she couldn't help but wipe the cold sweat from her forehead nervously at this moment. I didn't find any bounty list related to this pirate in the archives. Now Smoker Commodore suspects that his identity may not be simple. I have sent his photos. I hope Colonel Hina will find clues related to this man in time. After confirming his identity, you can make follow-up arrangements as soon as possible and contact me again. Thump, thump, thump. Suddenly, footsteps came from the cabin corridor, and this sound was mixed with the sound of doors being opened one after another. It seems like someone is searching for something. Could it be that he was discovered? When she thought of this, the girl immediately hid under the table in a panic. With a horrified expression, she listened to the heavy footsteps getting closer and closer. She felt that her heart was beating violently, as if it was about to reach her throat. The footsteps finally stopped. Squeak, the door to the small room. Chapter 28. Bewitching Hina. A ray of light shone into the dim room. The door was pushed completely open. Toshigi, what are you doing here? A man holding a cigar strode in. Smoker Commodore. Seeing the familiar figure, Toshigi's tense mood suddenly relaxed. She knelt down on the ground exhausted, and big beads of sweat on her face kept dripping on the wooden board. After letting out a long breath, he took out the phone bug hidden in his arms and said, I'm communicating with Colonel Hina. You idiot, this is a marine warship, and there are all marines on board. I just asked you to report, but I didn't ask you to do this. Smoker helplessly looked at the naturally stupid girl in front of him, and took the phone bug that was still communicating in the other person's hand. Hey, Hina, it's me, Smoker. Hina heard that you were being watched? The person on the other end of the phone said calmly. It's just this kid's wishful thinking. We haven't fallen into this situation yet. Smoker paused. However, that guy is indeed different. I need your information. You'd better find out his details quickly. Got it. Hina doesn't think you were begging for help, Smoker. The phone bug held a thin cigarette in his mouth and blew out a puff of smoke. It's because you can't speak that you are hated by the seniors in this department. Stop talking. I don't care what they think. Smoker also exhaled a puff of smoke. Okay. Hina sat on the table with her legs crossed and dangling in the air. She held the telephone receiver and muttered Smoker's words while taking the photo that had just been printed from the fax machine and handed over by the clerk. The man's bust came into view. Is this the man? Hina spoke casually and slowly exhaled a puff of smoke, nothing special. As she finished speaking, her expression suddenly changed, and her pupils suddenly dilated. He is. Any information? Smoker on the other end of the phone frowned. Hina believes that one should confirm it in person before drawing a conclusion. Hina can no longer take her eyes off the photo in her hand. She is very popular in Naval Headquarters and has been dealing with the Marine Intelligence Agency all year round, so she can know some information that ordinary generals cannot obtain. Advertisement. If it was really that man, why would he appear in today's era? Smoker, tell Hina your location. Hina rushed there now. The breeze was blowing. Hina stood on the deck of the warship. After capturing Crocodile and destroying the secret organization Baroque Chinese Society, she obtained approval from Naval Headquarters and entered a rare leave period. But the appearance of this photo forced her to end her vacation a week early. In an era long before Cross ruled the sea, there was a pirate who turned the Naval Headquarters upside down. Today's Marineford was rebuilt on those ruins. Before that man appeared, world government and marine prestige had reached their peak. But with just one person, he was able to shake Marine's image as an impossible god of war in the minds of the world. It can be said that that war overturned the situation of the entire world. From then on, the turmoil on the sea became more and more intense. Even if the world government tried hard to eliminate that man's influence, only 100 years was still too short. If he is the man called Blood Eye, Hina looked at the photo absent-mindedly. Colonel Hina. Fendi and Zhangao stood behind Hina, one on the left and one on the right. The former was holding a cloak and the latter was holding a scarf. They both said at the same time, "It's windy outside." After saying that, the two of them looked at each other secretly. How far is it from the G37 branch? Hina came back to her senses. It will take another day, the two said at the same time. Has the permanent pointer you took when you passed by the G19 branch yesterday properly kept? Yes, Colonel Hina. The two said in unison, then gritted their teeth and looked at each other, with the same warning in their eyes. Colonel Hina will not fall in love with a guy like you. Hina still has to do this kind of thing for Smoker, it's true. Hina curled her lips in dissatisfaction. As soon as they heard Smoker's name, the two people who were still competing with each other suddenly felt like deflated balls, unable to look up to the sky. If he gave birth to Smoker, why would he give birth to them both? Gaia Sea Area. Advertisement, Smoker Commodore, that's Captain Hina's warship. Toshigi whispered closely. Looking at the warship slowly approaching on the sea, Smoker exhaled puff after puff of smoke. When the two ships intersected, he faced them expressionlessly. Hina stepped forward. You don't seem happy at all to meet Hina? We have known each other for so many years, what is there to be happy about meeting? Smoker said calmly. You are so indifferent to Hina. Even so, she was already used to Smoker's way of speaking and didn't take it to heart. Instead, he turned to look at Joel, who was lying on the lounge chair wearing sunglasses and sunbathing. It's just that this undisciplined image doesn't look like a legendary figure at all. Hina is very curious that a legendary figure like Senior looks so young. As far as Hina knows, Senior is at least 120 years old, right? Hina stood very measuredly about 10 meters away from Joel and stopped. What? This guy is 120 years old. Behind them, Zhang and Fenbeti looked shocked. The man in front of them, who looked just a million times more handsome than them, was actually older than their dead grandfather. Even Smoker's brows jumped up. What kind of monster was on his ship? Who was he? 120 years old. The naturally stupid girl with glasses stuttered, and used her fingers to calculate the number in confusion, but found that her fingers seemed not enough. Joel looked at the visitor and suddenly laughed playfully. Do you also want to become younger like me? I can keep you young forever. Like a devil whispering in her ears, Hina's heart couldn't help but tremble. Although she has always taken good care of her figure and appearance, she also gives herself a long vacation every year to adjust her mentality and emotions. But after she turned 30, she felt obviously powerless, and when she smiled, a wrinkle at the corner of her eye would be clearly visible. Although she has been trying hard in the past 2 years to keep her smile small and reduce the appearance of wrinkles, she also knows that these passing years will never come back. Day after day of exposure to wind and sun on the sea will eventually make her skin dull, and she will eventually become one of the older women. It's just like, aged Crane Vice Admiral. When she thought of this, Hina suddenly woke up and threw all the disrespectful thoughts out of her mind. At the same time, she looked at Joel cautiously and thought. This man. He is bewitching Hina. Chapter 29 Naval Headquarters. How about it? Do you need to think about it? Joel said. No need. Although she knew that the other party did not hide any good intentions, Hina still said with a somewhat difficult tone. Hina is not a vase who can only dress up, so she is not interested in things like youth. That's such a pity. Joel sighed sadly. I heard that Senior needed to go to the Yag Islands, so Hina came over to give me a permanent pointer to that archipelago. Hina ordered Zhang to bring the small box to Joel and open it. There are 2 identical pointers placed in the box. The wooden round frame above the pointer is engraved with the words, Yage Islands. The significance of 2 pieces is that Navigator and Joel can each hold one. This is sincerity. After Joel confirmed, Hina asked Zhang to close the box and put it on the deck. Then Hina won't disturb Senior's rest. After saying that, she looked at Smoker. Hina heard from Toshigi that nearly half of the food on your ship was dampened in the previous heavy rain. You'd better go to a nearby town to make some supplies. It may take some time to reach the Yag Islands. A very subtle hint flashed through his eyes. I know, Smoker said calmly. Then, Hina leaves first. Hina had no intention of continuing the pleasantries and returned to her warship with her soldiers. There is no mistake, this man is Shui Tong. Smoker should understand what Hina means. He must hold this man back and not let him reach his destination so quickly. Hina thought as she walked quickly towards the cabin. She wanted to transmit this important information back to Naval Headquarters without delay. Naval Headquarters, Marineford. Due to its special geographical location close to the Red Line, this town is still home to the Marine's highest authority, the Naval Headquarters. At this moment, in the corridor of the Headquarters Castle Tower, the generals in the middle and high-level positions of Marine, wearing Marine cloaks, hurriedly walked to the conference room. Crane Vice Admiral, what happened? Marshal Sengoku summoned us suddenly. Vice Admiral Huo Shaoshan narrowed his eyes and smiled. Advertisement, I don't know, but I'm afraid it won't be a good thing. He Wong frowned slightly as he watched all the familiar figures enter the conference room one after another. Xiaohei. Garp said hello from behind and quickly came over. Didn't you go to East Blue to visit your grandson and come back so soon? He said in a calm tone. Forget it, that B*** D kid actually did such a thing. I won't let him go easily. Ha 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 ha. Garp said and laughed instead. He looked calm. I remember that you had the same attitude towards your son back then. They are all a bunch of inconsiderate bastards. It's all because the love in my iron fist is not deep enough. Isn't there something wrong with your education methods? Forget it, let's see what Sengoku has to say to us this time. Garp waved his hand awkwardly, changed the subject, and quickly walked into the conference room. The seats at the meeting were almost full of people, and the military ranks on their clothes were all above Vice Admiral level. Vice Admiral Garp. Vice Admiral Garp. After greeting several young Marine Vice Admirals nearby, Garp sat down at the front of the conference table. Everyone is here, Sengoku said with a serious face. Mr. Kuzan seems to have gone for a walk again. The non-commissioned officer belonging to the Aokiji unit stood beside the wall of the conference room, holding his head high and whispering. Doberman said coldly, as Marine's highest combat power, he does not stay at the headquarters, but wanders around. Isn't it a bit illegal? Marine 3 Admiral, as the face of Marine, has always had clear main responsibilities. Firstly, they must stay at the headquarters to maintain peace and stability in the nearby sea areas. Secondly, they must be dispatched when necessary to ensure the personal safety of the celestial dragons disembarking from the Red Line. They should be in a state of constant readiness, but strictly speaking, it was against the rules for Aokiji to run away without reporting anything. After all, as an admiral, I have some privileges, which is within reason. The flying squirrel crossed his arms, lowered his head and said slowly. Okay, I'm not here today to discuss Kuzan's affairs. Advertisement Sengoku interrupted the two who were still about to argue and other generals who also wanted to join in the discussion, and took the situation back into his own hands. The reason why this meeting was held today is because of his appearance. Branu, please put the information up. Yes, Marshal Sengoku. The general with green curly hair, wearing a blue and white striped shirt and a marine cape stepped forward and pasted a poster-like portrait on the white backboard in the center of the conference room. The man was wearing a dark red shirt and a black cloak, and his eyes as red as blood glanced at the side camera intentionally or unintentionally. This man is Blood Tong Joel. Sengoku put his elbows on the table and clasped his fingers together under his chin. His lowered eyes suddenly raised in shock. Garp, who was whispering to a certain vice admiral on the side, immediately closed his mouth and turned around quickly. The rest of the marine generals also looked at the portrait more or less. I'm afraid not everyone knows the man in this portrait. Sengoku took in the expressions of all the generals and said, Branu, please introduce Blood-Eyed Joel. Yes, Marshal Sengoku. Branu pasted all the rest of the written information on the backboard. Sirs, I will briefly introduce Blood-Eyed Joel's information next. Joel, his full name is Herman Joel. He was born in the kingdom of Herman 143 years ago and was the crown prince of the country at that time. But 127 years ago, for some reasons, he became a pirate. After becoming a pirate, Herman Joel did countless things that challenged the order of the sea. Two of the most egregious incidents were his single-handed destruction of the then naval headquarters Marineford, and his climb up the Red Line and the killing of the celestial dragons. Branu paused. Of course, as for how many celestial dragons were unfortunately killed at that time, I won't go into details with you, sirs. Who doesn't know yet? He died at that time. Garp couldn't help but take over after hearing this. Just as all the generals cast curious eyes on him, waiting for his next words, Sengoku quickly slammed the table and shouted, Garp, shut up. TCH, you can't say that. Garp curled his lips. Cough, Branu coughed and said, in short, Blood-Eyed Joel's strength will never be weaker than any of the current pirate 4 emperors. I'm afraid you don't know why I asked Major Branu to introduce a pirate who lived more than 100 years ago. Sengoku glanced at everyone in the conference room and said in a deep voice, then, I will tell you something. Herman Joel, who disappeared more than 100 years ago, is now resurrected. Chapter 30 Resurrection? Resurrection? This subtle word is like the subtle mentality of all the generals in the conference room. The reappearance of pirates from more than 100 years ago is not an unacceptable thing. After all, some people do live far longer than ordinary people. What's more, there are giants in this world who can live for 300 years, and the number of 100 years doesn't seem to be a lot. Even if an old pirate who is over 100 years old appears on the sea again, what kind of storm can he cause? As powerful as Whitebeard is, he has become more settled over the years due to age and injuries. Even though Shui Tong was such a legendary pirate in his time, he might not be better than a well-trained young soldier now. Resurrection, he frowned, as if he thought of something, and said slowly. Sengoku, you mean he is still at his peak strength? What? After he finished speaking, the rear admiral officer was shocked and said, how is that possible? Does he have the blood of a giant? Branu stood up straight, put his hands behind his back and said, as far as I know, the Herman royal family is pure human blood. Then, why? A general asked. I'm afraid it has something to do with his devil fruit ability, but how to resurrection is not the point. The point is that he is active again now. Even Colonel Barron, the base commander of the G46 branch, died heroically because of fighting with him. What do you think of this matter? Sengoku glanced at everyone with a serious expression. That disciple of Zephyr, I remember that his strength is quite good, but actually. Baron? He has been in the headquarters for almost 20 years since he was recruited into the army. He never expected to die at the hands of pirates. Surprised whispers continued to sound. Since the other party is a pirate who has done many evil things, let's eliminate him as soon as possible in the name of justice. Akainu pressed his hat, his expression shrouded in shadow. No matter what, we must not allow its power to grow and threaten justice. I don't agree with what Sakazuki said. Kizaru, who never liked to talk, spoke unusually, and everyone including Sengoku looked at him in surprise. Perusalino, What do you mean? Akainu said coldly. To deal with such a legendary pirate, I'm afraid we will have to face the same pressure as waging war against the four emperors. Kizaru slowly crossed his legs and leaned back on the seat. Can we bear the cost of weakening Marine's strength and breaking the current balance of forces? Seeing that all the generals were silent, he said silently. Advertisement. It seems that no one likes the work to suddenly become arduous. If the headquarters and various branches carry out high-intensity coordination and deployment, my off-duty time will be used to work overtime. Poor Shalino Admiral, do you mean that Marine just ignored it and turned a blind eye? The ghost spider looked at the Admiral, who looked quite leisurely and at ease. What does it matter? That guy Balin has always had a bad reputation. I have long been unhappy with him. I don't know who has been recommending him. It is a good thing for him to die with honor. Garp spoke without hesitation. I recommended it. Sengoku responded calmly. Today, this seemingly peaceful and stable sea is actually like a damp red brick. Once you pick it up, you can see dense ants crawling underneath. In order to eliminate these endless pirates, Marine had to put talent over virtue. This is not what Sengoku means per se, but comes from a higher level. But he doesn't tell anyone else this. As the commander-in-chief of an army, it is also his duty to contain the darkness from behind. It turns out to be Sengoku. UB**********D. Garp suddenly slapped the table and stood up, blowing his nose and staring. Sit down, Garp. Sengoku ordered. HMPH. Garp snorted and stopped talking. Currently, Shui Tong has not done anything too out of bounds. Instead of making Marine a powerful enemy again, it is better to let it go for the time being. Momoshagi looked at everyone's expressions with some hesitation, and then said, treat him the same way you treat Pluton Rayleigh. Pluton Rayleigh has been living in seclusion in the Saboti archipelago since the Roger Pirates disbanded. The middle and senior management of naval headquarters have also acquiesced in this matter. Although they have been sending people to monitor its actions, in fact, Marine has not made preparations for war with it for so many years. Just like Kizaru said just now, war has a price to pay. Gion is so right, I think so too. The T-Dolphin chuckled, moved his chair, and moved closer to Momoshagi. The Admiral's backup was not thinking about this matter at all at the moment. He slowly shook his head. No, Shui Tong is not like Rayleigh. His danger level has been obvious to all 100 years ago. He is a world-class criminal. So, Xiaohei, what do you mean? Sengoku asked. Advertisement. He continued. But fortunately, that guy has always liked to live alone and has not left behind a huge force, otherwise his energy may exceed the Revolutionary Army. Sengoku, this matter is very important. I can't give you a reasonable suggestion now. It's up to you to decide. Xiaohei. It was also the first time that Sengoku saw the great staff officer who was always able to calmly analyze the battle situation, be so hesitant. During the noisy and inconsistent discussion in the conference room, he suddenly realized that any decision made at this stage was still too hasty. This matter is no longer something that naval headquarters can resolve on its own. He had to go to Marijoy himself and report to higher-ups. Sengoku took a deep breath. Okay, I already have an idea on this matter, you don't have to argue anymore. What are you going to do, Sengoku? Garp crossed his arms over his chest and looked at his comrade who had worked with him for 50 or 60 years with a look of extreme displeasure. The other generals all stopped arguing and looked at Sengoku. Marine will not take any action until I come back from Marijoy. Also, Xiaozuru, please go with me. You must also attend the Shichibukai meeting held by the world government. Sengoku stood up and said, then let's break up this meeting. After all the officials in the conference room dispersed in twos and threes, he looked at Branu, who had been standing upright next to the backboard. Branu, please inform me and ask Smoker to continue to monitor Shui Tong. Any actions must be reported in time. Yes, Marshal Sengoku, is this naval headquarters decision? Smoker held the telephone bug's receiver expressionlessly. Toshigi looked around cautiously, fearing that someone would hear him. This is what the Marshal means. You don't have to think too much. Just do this for the time being to avoid causing more trouble. The phone bug's voice paused. Hina doesn't want to see only your body the next time we meet. I know, that's it. Smoker hung up the phone. Report, report. The urgent knock on the door made Toshigi tremble behind the door, and he nervously blocked the door with his body. Toshigi, let him in. Smoker was puffing on his cigar. The door to the captain's office was opened, and the soldier gasped out of breath. After seeing the familiar and generous figure, he stammered. Report, report Smoker Commodore, we have discovered a pirate ship approaching. It is 7 warlords of the sea. Chapter 31 Doflamingo was lying on the sun lounger on the deck in a good mood. Surrounded by 3 or 4 young girls with hot bodies in bikinis, they were smiling and playing. This time he went to sea from Dressrosa and went to the first half of the Grand Line, which is called Paradise. The purpose of this trip is naturally transaction. The 2 kings who were preparing to launch war against surrounding countries claimed that as long as they saw Joker, they would immediately agree to purchase weapons. So he personally took action and gave the opponent a small 7 warlords of the sea shock. After completing these 2 large arms transactions, he was going to take a detour to Magic Valley Town to see how far the young gangster he had given the Don Quixote family symbol had grown to be, and whether he was really qualified to become the new blood of the family. However, an unexpected surprise occurred. Crocodile was deprived of his identity. The world government summoned all 7 warlords of the sea and rushed to Marijoy to decide who would succeed him. So he postponed the matter and immediately set off for the Red Line. Although the world government urged him to arrive within 5 days, Doflamingo didn't care what those old guys thought. What made him feel good was the news of the downfall of the gloomy sand crocodile, and what kind of role he was looking forward to his colleagues in the future. Young master, a warship was found there. Buffalo's body kept spinning and dancing on the deck. But the strange thing is that his head did not turn at all and always looked in one direction. Young master, do you want to sink that warship? What if they discover our deal? Baby -5 took out 2 pistols from under her skirt. Don't be impulsive, BABY5. Marine has no right to check what cargo is on the 7 warlords of the sea's ship. Doflamingo pushed away a bikini girl next to him and slowly sat up with a smile. However, we can talk to them. Maybe there will be someone in the Marine who wants to be our friend, just like the colonel stationed in the G46 branch. I understand, young master. Buffalo ordered the helmsman to turn the bow and sail towards the warship. Then, he saw the figure walking out of the warship cabin and immediately shouted nervously. Young master, the captain of that warship, is the White Hunter Smoker. Is it Smoker? Baby -5 also said in surprise. Advertisement. Smoker. Who is that? Hearing the surprise in the 2 subordinates' voices, Doflamingo frowned. He seemed to have heard Smoker's name, but forgot where he heard it, but what is certain is that since Buffalo and Baby -5 both know each other, it means the opponent's military rank and position in the Marine should not be too low, maybe. Same as Virgo. Master, have you forgotten? It's Smoker who arrested Crocodile. Buffalo said quickly. Foo. Doflamingo put his hand on his forehead and suddenly laughed. How could I have forgotten this matter? It turned out to be Marine who arrested that smelly crocodile. It really piqued my interest. Buffalo, get this ship moving faster, I can't wait to meet him. I understand, young master. Buffalo chuckled, turned his head, and flew behind the sail like an airplane. His head turned into a propeller, blowing a strong wind pressure and quickly pushing the pirate ship towards the warship. Smoker stood on the deck of the warship, holding a cigar in his mouth and blowing out a smoke ring. 7 warlords of the sea, what does he want to do? Toshigi stood aside, adjusted his glasses and said, why doesn't it feel like a good thing? At this moment, I saw a figure walking through the air from the oncoming pirate ship. A few people jumped up on tiptoes and had already crossed a distance of nearly 100 meters. 5 color strings. An arrogant smile appeared at the corner of the figure's mouth, and his fingertips moved slightly as he reached out to grab it. In an instant, 5 almost transparent thin threads cut away. He didn't expect that Shichibukai, who belonged to the same camp, would suddenly attack him. Smoker's pupils couldn't help but shrink, and his body instantly turned into countless smoke shapes. But the speed of 5 color strings still exceeded his expectations. Amidst the faint sizzling sound made by the friction between the threads and the flesh, 5 streaks of hot blood splashed in the air. The scattered smoke regrouped into a human shape, but it still flew back uncontrollably and hit the side railing with a heavy bang. Cough. Smoker suddenly coughed up blood, and 5 slender wounds appeared from his chest to his abdomen. Advertisement. Fortunately, the elementalization was timely and most of the force was avoided, so these 5 wounds were not too deep. Smoker Commodore, are you okay? The soldiers on the deck rushed to Smoker's side, and some picked up weapons and stared at the figure in front of them with wide eyes. Doflamingo, what do you want? Toshigi blocked his body in front of Smoker, held Shigur in his hands, and asked excitedly. As 7 warlords of the sea, you actually dared to attack Marine. Do you want to be deprived of your Shichibukai identity like Crocodile? Toshigi, get out of the way, this guy is not something you can handle. Smoker stood up slowly, pushed Toshigi in front of him away, and looked coldly at the sea gangster who had always been arrogant. Doflamingo, do you think this is interesting? Doflamingo didn't show any joy on his face, and even frowned. Although the opponent was also a very rare Logia fruit user, he was much weaker than he imagined. If it were Crocodile, he should be able to dodge his attacks easily and without any damage, and then be able to have a casual chat with him, but this guy. Doflamingo suddenly felt unhappy and said, is Crocodile defeated and arrested by a Marine like you? Smoker was startled when he heard this, and said expressionlessly, it's not important. Unimportant. Doflamingo chewed on this sentence and suddenly laughed and said, Foo, I should be happy about the failure of that smelly crocodile, but... His voice gradually became colder. We are also 7 warlords of the sea. He is somewhat recognized by me, but I didn't expect that the reputation of defeating him would fall on a B***** D like you. Buzz. Doflamingo suddenly released a powerful momentum, swinging in all directions like a ring. Under the impact of Conqueror's hockey, the surrounding Marine soldiers felt their heads suddenly empty, and they fainted on the deck one after another. A hole, what on earth do you want to do? Smoker picked up Jusho angrily. He could no longer endure the other party's crazy provocation. What are you doing? Foo. Doflamingo sat arrogantly on the railing of the boat, crossed his right leg and moved his fingers slightly, or, let's play a game. What's going on, my body? Toshigi suddenly screamed in disbelief. Chapter 32 Nightmare Line. What's going on, my body? Toshigi exclaimed. She found that her limbs did not obey her command at all, and seemed to be being controlled by someone. They moved inexplicably. Doflamingo moved his index finger slightly, and Toshigi immediately turned towards Smoker and pointed the famous sword in his hand at him. Foo, wouldn't it be interesting to kill your subordinates, or be killed by your subordinates? A-hole. Smoker suddenly became furious, his lower body turned into white smoke, and rushed towards Doflamingo. The latter had already predicted it and controlled Toshigi to run in front of him, blocking Smoker's attack with his body. Hateful. Smoker was forced to withdraw his 10 hands. Can't you do it? What a good boss who is considerate of his subordinates. Doflamingo said while controlling Toshigi to attack continuously. Elementalization? You can hide like this before I change my mind. I won't guarantee whether the game will end early if it gets too boring. For example, let me kill this woman for you. Smoker was already at a loss, but when he heard Doflamingo's naked threat, he panicked and was hit in the chest by Shiger. Suddenly, blood flowed down. Yes, that's it. A gladiatorial fight should bleed. Foo. Smoker Commodore, I. Toshigi was in tears, his voice choked. However, tears could not stop this, and the knife in her hand swung towards Smoker without any pause. On the approaching pirate ship, Baby-5 looked at this scene and sighed. It's over, the young master started to act nonsense again. Buffalo flying in the air laughed and said, after all, the young master is now the 7 warlords of the sea recognized by the world government. It's time to pay them back the anger I suffered when I was running away from Marine's pursuit. After all, Doflamingo is a character who still goes his own way even after reaching Maria Jo. Even if they now meet Vice Admiral, the crane who was chasing them in the first place, they will not restrain themselves. In comparison, these Marines in front of me are nothing. Bang bang bang. The metal collided, making crisp sounds. Toshigi's movements were not dexterous and even a little clumsy, but Smoker refused to take action against his subordinate and was forced to defend. It's silk thread. Advertisement. He diverted his attention to observe Toshigi's body coordination, and suddenly realized the reason why the latter was being manipulated. But precisely because of the distraction, the abdomen of the body that could not be transformed into elements was penetrated deeply by the white blade that was thrust out at an accelerated speed. Toshigi pulled out the blood-red Shiger and watched in despair as his beloved commander slowly fell to the ground. Foo. Is this the only level? Stand up, Smoker, the game is not over yet. Doflamingo laughed wildly, but suddenly, he looked at the cabin door that was slowly pushed open, and his laughter stopped abruptly. The tall figure slowly walked out of the darkness inside step by step. I remember saying, keep quiet during nap time. Do you think it's disturbing my rest? Is it a fun thing to do? The gentle tone revealed an unquestionable and absolute dominance, and a heavy sense of oppression suddenly enveloped everyone's hearts. Even on the pirate ship, which was dozens of meters away from the warship, Baby-5 and Buffalo clearly felt that their breathing had stopped for a moment. Doflamingo looked at the figure. He was stunned for half a second, and then showed a look that was more like surprise on his face. His fingers rose and fell rapidly like playing a piano. Toshigi, who was like a puppet, lifted up the long knife, bursting out faster than before, and rushed towards Joel like an arrow from the string. Joel raised his head slightly and stretched out his left hand from under his broad cloak. Baby-5, who was far away on the pirate ship, felt that he was being pulled deeply by a strange force, and was involuntarily swept away from the air. She landed on the deck of the warship, quickly drew out the saber behind her, and perfectly blocked the falling Shiger with one lunge. Baby-5, what are you doing? Why are you helping that guy? Are you going to betray the young master? Watching the maid beside him rushing into the whirlpool of the battle, Buffalo couldn't help but shout anxiously. I don't know, how could this happen? Baby-5 stumbled with some fear. She clearly felt that she seemed to have completely lost control of her body. It's like the feeling of being controlled by the young master with silk thread, unable to resist. But the matter didn't end there. She held the knife against Shiger in one hand and raised the other hand, hanging in the air. Without actively using Devil Fruit's ability, his arm suddenly turned into a black barrel and was pointed at Doflamingo. Boom! The bullet was fired instantly. Suddenly, Doflamingo's head fell back as if he had been shot. What did you do? Buffalo looked shocked and couldn't believe it. Little Lord, Baby-5 was so frightened that his face was covered with cold sweat. Although she had attacked Doflamingo many times because of her husband's affairs, unlike the previous attacks, this time it was not out of her will. Advertisement. What makes her even more puzzling is why her Devil Fruit ability is activated automatically. Foo. Doflamingo slowly stretched his neck back, and a narrow wound scratched by a bullet appeared on his forehead. But he didn't feel any discomfort. Looking at the oppressive man in front of him, he felt unexpectedly excited. Nightmare thread. Legend has it that once this thread seeps into the blood, it will make a person unable to get rid of it like a nightmare. Even the demon fruit power will use its own abilities like sleepwalking. Although the principle is unclear, there is no doubt that the person who can use this move is undoubtedly the legendary big man. Now that you know it's me, you still dare to provoke. Joel moved his fingertips indifferently, causing Baby-5 to jump into the air, and his body turned into a Gatling carrying a circle of bullets. Should I praise your courage or laugh at your stupidity? Da. The intensive firepower released by Gatling poured madly towards Doflamingo in an instant. Doflamingo abandoned the thin string he was controlling, stood on tiptoes out of thin air, and moved backwards at high speed. The pink feather coat draped behind him was like the wings of a flamingo bird, undulating in the wind. Amid the waves that continued to stir up, he returned to the deck of the pirate ship and said with a hint of respect in his arrogant tone, "There are too many useless counterfeiters in this world, and learning to screen and identify them is also a means for us desperate people. I just want to confirm whether your identity is what I think. After all, it is too far away from that era." Joel looked indifferently. "Do you think you can get my forgiveness by saying this?" The expression on Doflamingo's face froze slightly, but he soon returned to his natural state. "Lord Joel must be very fond of this loyal and beautiful maid of mine. In this case, I will give her to you. This is my most sincere apology." Joel looked at the other party noncommittally, and before he could speak, Baby -5 shouted in disgrace, I won't agree. "Young master, Baby 5, she." Buffalo wanted to say something else, but Doflamingo stopped him with his hand, who looked at the maid. "Baby-5, I need you to do this." "Need?" The maid's heartbeat suddenly accelerated and she bit her lower lip. "I understand. Buffalo, let's go." No matter what Joel's attitude was, Doflamingo didn't want to stay here for a moment longer and urged Buffalo. The latter held back his words, glanced at Baby-5, then quickly turned his head and rolled up for a while. The strong wind pressure pushed the pirate ship away at high speed. Never mind. Joel stretched his muscles and felt a lot less angry when he got up. He let go of the bloodline controlling the maid, stretched appropriately, and then walked back to the cabin calmly. "Can you make black tea?" Baby-5 hesitated for a moment, but then followed up timidly. "I know a little bit." Chapter 33 World Economic News Agency. "Young master, who is that guy?" In the luxurious room inside the pirate ship, Buffalo asked in a low voice. "You should know why I can become 7 warlords of the sea, right?" Doflamingo did not answer directly, but asked, "Because the celestial dragons are afraid of you robbing them of their heavenly gold." "No, this is only part of the reason. Not everyone can use this to blackmail them." Doflamingo sat on a chair that was spacious enough. "The most important thing is that I was once a celestial dragon's." His voice paused slightly. "Although I have never mentioned it, it doesn't hurt to tell you one thing. More than 100 years ago, a pirate once broke into the Red Line without permission and killed 34 celestial dragons. 34. Although he didn't know why the young master mentioned this matter, Buffalo still opened his mouth in surprise. "Those are celestial dragons. He is the Lord of the world who has the title of God. The personal safety of any celestial dragons is considered a top priority by the world government. Whenever something goes wrong, Naval Headquarters will immediately dispatch the Marine Admiral to rescue and suppress the source of the unrest. However, more than 30 of such noble celestial dragons were killed in the Red Line where they lived. This thing is simply unimaginable. Do you want to know who that pirate is?" Doflamingo said. "That pirate." Just as Buffalo was about to ask, he suddenly trembled as if he thought of something. He felt a cold air coming out of his back and said in a trembling voice, "Could he be?" "Yes, that's the man you just met, the worst world-class criminal in history, Blood-Eyed Joel." Doflamingo covered his face, hiding his expression under his palms. "As far as I know, the portrait of this man is still hanging in the family hall of the Celestial Dragons Don Quixote branch. Those surviving Celestial Dragons are always warning future generations, asking them to remember it firmly. This shame, don't let history repeat itself." "Is that why, young master, you sent Baby-5, specially to monitor that man's future actions?" Buffalo hesitated for a moment. He still had deep feelings for the maid he grew up with. "I do think so. Of course, the premise is that she can do what I expected, foo-foo-foo-foo-foo." Advertisement. Doflamingo took off his palm and burst out laughing. "But don't you think it's funny? This man has reappeared in the world. If those arrogant celestial dragons bastards knew about this, what kind of expressions would they have on their faces? Just think about it, it would be very interesting." "Young master, what are you going to do next?" Buffalo asked curiously. Fur. Doflamingo stood up slowly and smiled proudly. "I thought of a good idea. World Economic News is one of the largest newspapers in the world. But its headquarters is a teapot-like hot airboat, which is divided into several rooms and is only a few hundred square meters in size. Because of the special nature of the media industry, the world government has always wanted to take control of the announcement of news. Therefore, in order to avoid being discovered by the world government, the hot airship will regularly move its location. Today, it is sitting on an unknown island in the Grand Line. Mr. Morgan's Joker has sent a message." Inside the headquarters, members took phone bugs and hurriedly ran to the president's office. "Joker, what does he want from me?" Morgan's arranged the documents on the table. "He said he was going to sell us a bombshell story." "What big news? If his price is too high, I won't agree to it." Morgan's raised his eyes and put down the document in his hand. He said, "President, if you listen to this, you will definitely be moved." After the member finished speaking, Morgan's took the phone from the phone bug and said enthusiastically, "Joker, I haven't seen you for a long time. As an intermediary, I have never seen any information about you betraying your employer. Why did you suddenly change your gender this time?" "I won't do such boring things." The person on the other end of the phone said, "The news I'm giving you this time will definitely help your newspaper sell a good number. Stop being so secretive, Joker. Although I am a miser, if your news is shocking enough, I will pay you accordingly." Foo. Advertisement. The phone bug laughed. Let me tell you, the blood pupils are resurrected. The concise words made Morgans suddenly stunned. Mr. Morgans. The members who felt the phone was bugged quickly called out to the president, who was in a daze. Resurrected? Is this true? Morgans jumped up suddenly, shouted excitedly into the microphone, Joker, you're not lying to me. The harsh noise made the person on the other end of the phone couldn't help but frown, plucked his ears and said, I have been in business for so many years, and what I always pay attention to is integrity. Great, great. Morgan rubbed his hands and moved them in circles excitedly. With such explosive news, the newspaper will definitely sell like crazy. But soon, he suddenly realized something. His expression became much calmer, and he said into the microphone, Joker, why are you telling me this news? Are you really just doing it for this reward? Foo. You are indeed a smart person. You noticed it so quickly. Are you interested in helping me take care of the business? Forget it, I'm not interested in fighting or killing. Morgan said disgustedly, I want to know the reason why you did this even more. Well, let me tell you, I want to cause more chaos. The more chaotic this sea becomes, the more people will come to patronize my business, and my power will grow stronger. The phone bug smiled happily. I see. He is indeed the most famous intermediary in the underground world. What a joker. Morgans complimented him unceremoniously, and after talking to him about more information and the finalized remuneration, he laughed and said, I hope we can cooperate so happily next time. After hanging up the phone, he quickly walked to the member's office and said happily to everyone in the room, Gentlemen, I have received a big piece of news. I will provide a format for redoing the front page later. You can revise and edit it according to my requirements. Mr. Morgans, there's a lot of news about Pirates Supernova at this stage, and we are almost running out of space in the layout. How can we find another place? The news editor wearing a painter's hat said with a sad face. The evil deeds committed by Captain Eustace, Kid and Gangster, Capone Beige, as well as the recent Vinsmoke family roaming the Grand Line, and the aftermath of the arrest of the 7 warlords of the sea, these would be nothing in normal times. It is rare news material. FK Supernova, FK Vinsmoke, FK 7 warlords of the sea. Morgan sneered and said, put all these useless news into the corners of the last 2 pages. Nothing is more important now than blood eyes. Chapter 34. 4 Emperors shocked. The warship continued sailing in the direction of the Yagequan Islands. Can you really make tea? I've never seen a worse maid than you. Joel lay lazily on his side on the bed, looking at the clumsy baby -5 casually. What are you talking about? I have already served you so wholeheartedly, but you still have to be picky. Baby -5 is so angry that her tea-making hand is shaking. The anger at being abandoned by Doflamingo has been simmering in her heart. In the past few days, she has been manipulated like a bull and horse. Her violent temper has long been out of control. The maid is just her part-time job, but she is a real killer, the kind who kills without blinking an eye. Please don't be so rude, and please don't smoke during working hours. Joel's tone was a little cold. The aristocratic etiquette he had received since childhood made him have very strict professional requirements for maids. Please. The anger on Baby 5's face suddenly melted away, and he immediately took the cigarette out of his mouth and bit his finger shyly. Okay, then I will try to be gentler in my speech in the future. Then practice making tea 10,000 times, starting from preparing the tea set and tea leaves. Joel stood up and walked out of the room. 10,000 times? Baby -5 said angrily, I won't listen to you, you will die if you do it 10,000 times. Excuse me, Joel added. Well, I know. Baby -5 struggled a little, then turned back into a well-behaved lamb, saying in his heart, 10,000 times. It's just 10,000 times, it doesn't matter, I can do it. After walking out of the room, Toshigi, who was half crouching and eavesdropping on the corner, hurriedly stood up straight and looked around as if nothing had happened. But it seemed that because he was caught red-handed, he suddenly felt guilty and his ears turned red. Don't you have to take care of Smoker? It seems that his injury is almost healed. Joel glanced at Toshigi indifferently, not caring at all about the other party's childish eavesdropping methods. He has nothing untoward to say, and the real secrets can never be eavesdropped on by others. Well, Toshigi hesitated, his mind still stuck on the moment when his eavesdropping was discovered. Because Smoker was stabbed by her, she desperately wanted to do something to make up for the mistake she made, eavesdropping on useful information. After all, it's unknown whether the 7 warlords of the sea's subordinates and powerful pirates of unknown origin are secretly conspiring to do something ulterior. It is obviously such a just and above-board thing to do, but why do I feel so weak in my heart? Advertisement on deck. Smoker stood by the ship's rail with his upper body still bandaged, frowning at the dilapidated shipwrecks that fell from time to time in the sky. This magical phenomenon is said to be due to the existence of islands in the sky, but since he has never witnessed it with his own eyes, he is deeply skeptical about this. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw the cabin door open. He glanced back. When he saw the person coming, he couldn't help but take a deep breath of his cigar and spit it out slowly. As a Marine, he was rescued many times by pirates from the opposite camp in critical moments. Such dramatic results made him feel quite complicated. Joel blew the sea breeze, checked the permanent pointer in the direction of the warship, and waved to the newsbird in the sky. The newsbird spread its wings and landed on the rail below the mast. 1 serving. Joel pulled a newspaper from Newsbird's mailbag and pointed at Smoker. He pays. Faced with the pirate's bossy, Smoker took out 2 coins with a slight twitch in his eyes and threw them into Newsbird's bag. 2 servings. After receiving the newspaper from Newsbird, he scanned the contents at a glance, and then the look of surprise on his face could not be calmed down for a long time. A small island in New World. The pirates were singing and dancing, eating meat and drinking wine, enjoying everything in the banquet. Shanks, look at this. Beckman held a thin cigarette in his mouth and handed over the newspaper in his hand. Shanks' face turned red, and he shook his body drunkenly. He hooked Beckman's shoulders and pulled him to the wooden chair next to him. Drink first, no matter how important things are, they're not as important as the banquet, right, kids? As he shouted, a group of pirates responded one after another. Of course, boss, this is the most wonderful party. Hey. Shanks happily handed the wine glass to Beckman. Stop your thoughtful mind for the night. Even if it's Whitebeard, we can't talk about it until today. Beckman placed the handed glass of wine back on the table, opened the folded newspaper with his other hand, and placed it in front of Shanks' eyes. Are you sure you don't want to read today's newspaper? Oh, if it's not Luffy's news, then there's nothing interesting to see. Shanks glanced hastily and was about to take off the newspaper blocking his view when he suddenly realized something and suddenly woke up. He grabbed the newspaper and stared at the title on the page. Shocking incident. The top criminal Herman Joel, who has been silent for 100 years, comes to the Sea of Gaia again? About the dusty deeds of this blood-eyed tyrant in the past twilight of gods. Advertisement. The blood pupil is resurrected. Shanks was completely sober at this point. I told you, you won't want to miss it. After all, this legend became famous around the world 100 years ago. Beckman blew out wisps of smoke. It just happened to be at this juncture. Shanks looked solemn and said, I have a bad feeling. It seems that I have to meet with Whitebeard in advance. This is really a troubled time. Beckman looked at the pirates enjoying the banquet and said calmly, however, I hope it will not affect their mood tonight. Maybe the number of banquets held in the future will become less and less. New World, Cake Island. The huge figure sat on a chair covered by darkness, grabbed a Homitz cake, stuffed it into his mouth, chewed it, and let out a horrible laugh. The various homies in the room peered into the darkness from afar, hiding in fear. But even so, they found that their lives were still being eaten away by this ferocious aura. Lin, did you see that news? Ah. Another sound came from the darkness, and then the phone bug was placed aside on the table in the light. Kaido, I didn't expect you to contact me for this kind of thing. We haven't said hello for a long time. Hey, isn't this important? Shui Tonki has always been the object of Rock's crazy admiration. I can still recall the way Rock's chattered non-stop. Of course it's important. I'm very interested in him. I've even prepared an invitation for the next tea party for him. If he can come, well. Charlotte Linlin's words stopped suddenly, and she burst out laughing happily. With laughter, the sun Prometheus suddenly rose from the darkness and hung from the ceiling, completely illuminating the entire room and dispelling all the chill. Charlotte Linlin opened her hands, and in an instant, all the homies in the room lined up neatly and began to play and dance happily, singing and laughing. I will propose to him and let him be my 44th husband. Well. She was spinning in circles with an expectant look on her face. What if he doesn't agree? The phone bug kept laughing. Then let him. Following the words, the sun Prometheus instantly lost its light, and all the joy in the room turned into silence, leaving only the extremely deep darkness and the penetrating grin. Go Meet Rocks, Chapter 35 Meeting of 7 Warlords of the Sea. A small island in the Sea of Gaia. Captain Teach, do you really want to do such a dangerous thing? Fan Oka asked unhurriedly, carrying a sniper rifle. What does it matter? If you are lucky enough, you can meet that man on the island in front. Luck, maybe it will be on our side, thief ha. Marshall. D. Teach looked at the newspaper in his hand with excitement. In his eyes, there is something called ambition. Let's go. The helmsman, Badgers, hammered each other with both fists. Captain Teach is the nemesis of all power users. No matter how strong the opponent is, in the end, they're still demon fruit power. Ahem, it's too dangerous. Dukyu coughed violently and lay weakly on the horse. I hope I won't die of illness before reaching the end of this journey. The strange and ugly pirates walked forward while chatting and laughing. Warhead Island. Zon Momomaru, what are you doing? Vegapunk took time out from his rare busy work and was sitting in the reception room to rest. Uncle Vegapunk, I won't tell you that I am watching a major news. After all, I am the most stern man in the world. Zon Momomaru said with his back to Vegapunk. What news? Vegapunk picked up the teacup on the table. It's a pirate known as Blood Eye who has been resurrected. Puff. Vegapunk suddenly spit out a mouthful of tea and said excitedly, show me the newspaper quickly, what's going on? He took the newspaper from Zon Taomaru's hand and took a long breath after reading it. Sure enough, he is back. The original blood sample in Vegapunk's ongoing, green blood experiment, is the great pirate who disappeared 100 years ago. After those original conjectures were confirmed by this news, his thoughts at this time became even more chaotic. Uncle Vegapunk, do you know him? Zon Taowen said curiously. In the past era, no one did not know him. Many of the things he did can be said to have changed the world. Vegapunk's eyes were confused. Even the subject of the boundary between flesh and machine, that I have devoted myself to studying for so many years, was deeply inspired by his blood factor theory. Zhang Taowen looked surprised. Is he really that powerful? His achievements in exploring the mysteries of the human body can be said to be unprecedented. Vegapunk said slowly, do you know why he was able to cross 100 years and reappear in the world? Why? Zhang Taowen asked. Because he discovered a mysterious substance that rests in the human blood, the life factor. A sufficient amount of the life factor will produce a qualitative change and extend the life of its host. Unfortunately, the total amount of life factors in each person's body is fixed and does not change from birth. When I was young, I conducted experiments and found that different life factors in people's bodies would repel each other and could not coexist. But he should be different. If my guess is accurate, the devil fruit ability born from desire allows him to transform other people's life factors for his own use. This should be the reason why he has never aged. Is that eternal life? Zan Momomaru was immersed in Vegapunk's words. Whether you can live forever, no one knows. Vegapunk shook his head slowly, and his divergent thoughts made him think of another thing, and Zan Taomaru asked, what else? Vegapunk glanced at Zan Momomaru. I can tell you, but you must not talk nonsense everywhere. Don't worry, Uncle Vegapunk, I am the most strict-tongued man in the world. Vegapunk nodded and continued, he also dug out another power in the blood, evil spirit. Evil spirit. It is diametrically opposed to the life factor that remains in the blood, which is a kind of spiritual energy that is constantly flowing in the human body. In my sample of 100 observations, I found 2 who were able to master this magical power through special training. However, once the person who masters it uses this evil spirit, it will cause bad luck in a short period of time and even threaten his life. It is a force that is more inclined to death. While speaking, Vegapunk himself seemed to have fallen into some kind of deep thought, muttering to himself. Life and death are the greatest mysteries of the human body, and he seems to have understood. Red Line, Holy Land Marijoy. The 5 elders, the most powerful people in the world government, were standing or sitting in the splendid hall. An official was half kneeling on the ground, reporting the intelligence he had received. Advertisement. What, you mean Redhead? The old man with a straight beard said in surprise. The Marine Sergeant said respectfully. Yes, we are already starting to make a move. It can't be that he took action himself, right? The bald old man wearing glasses said. The official said, yes, the envoy was sent indirectly. However, it is still too dangerous for Whitebeard to come into contact with red hair. The blond old man said with a serious face. That's true. The bald old man nodded with both hands. Once the redhead takes action, he will be a very hot potato, but he is not a man who will change the world for his own selfish desires. The white curly-haired old man clasped his fingers together. Let's hold still for now and observe for a while before talking. There's one more thing. The official swallowed nervously. Is there anything else? The curly-haired old man asked. Kaido and Charlotte Linlin also communicated yesterday. After saying this, the 5 elders all frowned. If Kaido and Charlotte Linlin really come into contact, the impact will probably be greater than the red hair's actions. This matter had to attract their great attention. Inform Sengoku to send additional manpower and let New World's Marine closely monitor their actions, the bald old man said. The curly-haired old man added, let CP0 also take action. They are better at doing these things. This signal is too dangerous. We must prepare for the worst. The old man with a straight beard looked at the newspaper in his hand and said solemnly, in the final analysis, everything is attributed to this man. His mere appearance has already made the sea turbulent. The matter has come to this, there is no point in talking more, let's talk about Shichibukai's successor first. The bald old man wearing glasses said seriously, if the small hole is not repaired, it will turn into a big hole sooner or later. That's right. The blond old man frowned. Once the camps of the 3 major forces collapse, it will directly have an impact on the world. We must maintain a balance of power. The official said, yes, I have summoned the Shichibukai for this reason, but I don't know how many will come. After all, pirates are all arrogant guys. The conference hall in Pangu City. Bartholomew Bear sat quietly on the sofa, browsing the books in his hands. How on earth can we control the demon fruit power as well? Doflamingo sat on the balcony, murmuring and playing with the thread in his hand. Under his control, 2 generals wearing marine cloaks pulled out the swords from their waists with strange expressions. Doflamingo, it's you who did it. They are all good kids, please spare them. Crane Vice Admiral glanced at Doflamingo. Good boy, officer I really lost to you. In this case, let's finish the matter quickly so that this boring party can end. Foo. How unbecoming is it to have a fight in the conference room? Sengoku opened the door with some displeasure. Crane Vice Admiral looked up. You were criticized by Commander Kong, right? Let's not mention this for now. Sengoku walked to the seat and said, let's start the meeting. If we wait any longer, no one will come. It's already unexpected that 2 of 6 will come. He sat on the chair and was about to speak when a whale shark wearing a patterned bathrobe, Jinbei from 7 Warlords of the Sea, walked in slowly on wooden clogs. Sorry, I came a little late because something happened on the Fishman Island. Seeing the visitor, Doflamingo suddenly became interested and said with a joking smile. Unexpectedly, Jinbei, who has always been a loyal sea hero, is also interested in the successor of 7 Warlords of the Sea. Is there someone he wants to insert? Could it be the Fire Fist of the Whitebeard Pirates? Jinbei ignored Doflamingo's eccentric words and just said calmly, I'm not the only one Shichibukai has come, there are others. As soon as he finished speaking, a tall figure who was humming slightly followed Jinbei into the room, pointed at a marine wearing a cloak of justice, and said in a sharp voice. The light here is so dazzling. Hey, that boy, pull down the curtains for me. I hate brightness, and where should my position be? The person who started shouting as soon as he entered the door and made the entire conference room noisy was none other than the current 7 warlords of the sea, Gecko Moria. Sengoku's brows twitched slightly, a little surprised. How come Jinbei, who has never been interested in power, and Gecko Moria, who has been staying in the Devil's Triangle for who knows how many years, are here? Now, there are the 7 warlords of the sea. Over the years, this scene has only appeared during the first official Shichibukai meeting. Fufufu, Gecko Moria, what kind of dark and damp wind was it that blew you out of the smelly ditch in the Devil's Triangle? Doflamingo looked askance at Gecko Moria, changing the object of his ridicule. Heavenly Yaksha, you are not trying to provoke me into doing something outrageous, are you? Gecko Moria sat on the seat, folded his hands behind his head, and the old god said. I don't have such thoughts, but you'd better not mess with me, otherwise I won't promise to turn all your citizens into my zombie specimens, hee hee hee. If you can do it, let's try it, fufufu. Doflamingo had a charming smile on his face. If you interfere with me, I will kill you without hesitation, and the world government can't protect you, I said so. Advertisement, after listening to it for a long time, it was just boring conversations. Could it be that I went to the wrong place? The man carrying the world's most powerful black knife slowly walked from the door. Everyone here must have a reason to come. Don't let this meeting lose its meaning. I didn't expect you to come too. Sengoku looked at Mihawk, known as the world's greatest swordsman, and the current 7 warlords of the sea, and felt even more incredible. A strange smile appeared on Doflamingo's lips. What the hell, the most unlikely person is here. What's all the fuss about? I'm just here to listen. I'm a little interested in the Straw Hat Pirate that the council will discuss this time. Mihawk looked indifferent. Besides, you all have the same purpose as me. Now that everyone is here. Sengoku watched everyone take their seats, then let the meeting begin. Regarding the subsequent succession of 7 warlords of the sea crocodile, if you have any candidates in mind, you may wish to recommend them. However, there was no incessant talking or even quarreling in the conference room. There seemed to be a strange tacit understanding. Everyone looked around, closed their eyes, or lowered their heads. Everyone was bored and silent. Sengoku frowned. The reason why these big pirates came to Marijoy so proactively was obviously for one thing. But why did they not take a position on Shichibukai's succession? Since you don't want to discuss it, I will reluctantly propose a candidate so that this issue can be ended as soon as possible. Jinbei crossed his arms over his chest. I have heard of a pirate named Edward Wable. Before the words could be finished, the door of the conference hall was violently pushed open, and everyone's eyes couldn't help but fall on the visitor. The current 7 warlords of the sea, Empress Boa Hancock, who is tall and has a peerless appearance, walked in and glanced at everyone with a cold look. Has the meeting started? When everyone looked at her, she tilted her head back and picked her index finger with extreme contempt. But with such a beautiful Aegea, even if you were late, you won't have any complaints. Fufufu, another freak. Doflamingo smiled strangely. Surprising. He raised his eyes and looked deeply at the woman in the purple cheongsam. As Marine's chief advisor, she knew the other party's secrets that could not be told to outsiders. Therefore, she was even more surprised by the other party's arrival. After all, she had left indelible psychological scars when she was a girl, and now she is willing to come back to her old place again. She is probably under a psychological pressure that ordinary people cannot imagine. Was the 7 warlords of the sea really enough to bring her here? The topic of today's parliament should be to discuss that man. We can continue now. Boa Hancock sat on a seat next to Jinbei, crossing his legs elegantly, revealing his flawless calves and snow-white ankles. All members of 7 warlords of the sea are actually here. Sengoku glanced back and forth in disbelief, shook off a certain thought that flashed through his mind, and said with a serious face. So, Jinbei, please continue. Your recommended candidate is Edward Wable? Edward Wable. Boa Hancock suddenly frowned and interrupted the topic coldly. The Aegea are not here for such a boring man. The Aegea just want to know if the news in the newspaper is true. After the words fell, everyone else looked up. I should have said this a long time ago, hee hee hee. Gecko Moria's sluggish look suddenly cheered up. That man is in the Gaia Sea now, right? After you Marine arrest him, where are you going to throw his body? Give me his skeleton, even if it's just the skeleton. He is not someone who will be arrested lightly. Jinbei answered calmly. At that time, his strength was unparalleled in the world. But that was just in the beginning. How many % of his original strength can he have now? Mihawk asked. Fufufu. They are all restless guys. Doflamingo laughed wildly. Are you going to provoke him? You may end up with a tragic end, and there won't even be anyone to collect the body. I want to try. There was a hint of seriousness in Mihawk's eyes as he said, what is the power that surpasses all humans in the world? Snort. Doflamingo snorted. Madman. The Ai family is not interested in fighting and killing. The Ai family only wants to know, is the Shui Tong really resurrected? Boa Hancock nodded slightly and glanced at Sengoku with a condescending expression. I see. Only now did Sengoku realize that his previous guess was correct. The reason why these pirates were willing to come here. There is only one reason. Sengoku couldn't help but feel a little annoyed when he thought of Shui Tong. Not long ago, he was scolded by the Commander-in-Chief Kong. The reason is that after seeing the newspaper, he strongly advocated a heavy reward for the wanted blood pupil Joel, but Commander Kong did not think so. Now the red hair is ready to move, and Charlotte Linlin and Kaido have also begun to communicate. This sea is sending out signals of extreme danger all the time. If we push Shui Tong into the hostile camp, it will only plunge the world government into a quagmire that is hard to figure out. Once the balance of forces among all parties is broken, the future will only collapse into a mess. How could Shui Tong's identity and location be exposed? How do your Marines do things? Also, you can't even understand the current situation. You've been serving as Marshal for so many years in vain. Commander Sora's roar echoed in his mind again. Sengoku couldn't help but take a deep breath. Faced with several eyes in the conference hall falling on him at this moment, he looked back at each one expressionlessly. I have no comment about the blood pupil. Chapter 36 Choosing Ingredients. Your Highness Joel, today is your 14th birthday. Get up quickly. The maid patiently brewed black tea on the side. I am 1 year older. I can't get up so late. Be careful of the king and princess coming. His voice trailed off, with a hint of a snicker. Spank your A**. Iana, what are you talking about? I just fell seriously ill not long ago, and it was too late for them to feel sorry for me. The boy in pajamas said nonchalantly, turning over again on the large and comfortable bed. Perhaps we should really be grateful for that serious illness. The maid looked absently at the hideous scars on her arms that had scabbed for a long time. These were not all, there were countless such scars on her body. After that serious illness, Your Majesty Joel, you have become a completely different person. You are no longer so gloomy. Ah. As she spoke, she screamed in surprise and quickly wiped away the tea that had leaked out of the teacup with a white cloth, while muttering in self-pity. Really, how can I say bad things about His Highness and still keep running away? Iana, you are really becoming more and more lawless now. The young man stood up slowly and looked at the maid in front of him, his legs crossed casually, his right hand resting on his chin, a carefree and brilliant smile on his face. Iana, if you do something wrong, you must be punished. I will punish you to secretly get me a cup of Coke. The kind that needs to be iced. Remember, don't let Ori find out. Do you want to drink Coke? Sir? The maid who was making tea awkwardly added the honorific at the end of the sentence. Although she is not yet proficient, she can't help but respond to someone's request in this way. Why would I say such shameful words? Yes, it's all for the young master's mission. She thought to herself. Joel sat on the edge of the bed, gradually recovered from his daze, smiled lightly at baby -5 and said, Yes, please go get a bottle of Coke, I haven't drank it for a long time. Ma, trouble. Baby -5 felt that his heartbeat suddenly accelerated a few beats. Okay, I'll get it right away. Looking at the maid's leaving figure, Joel couldn't help but rub his eyebrows. Perhaps he had forgotten too many things after sleeping for too long, so that past memories would inadvertently resurface in his mind. It was indeed a great time. Perhaps, it is the cruelty of this world that makes people miss every little bit of the past. Advertisement. After a while, baby -5 took back the Coke and poured it into the tall glass as carefully as making tea. Joel gracefully picked up the goblet and took a sip. By the way, do you buy fruits and vegetables on weekdays? Purchase. Baby -5 stammered, this completely touched on her blind spot. When she was in the Don Quixote family, someone would naturally take care of these things, so she didn't need to worry about them. I understand, come with me. Joel glanced at the expression on baby 5's face, stood up immediately, and walked towards the door. As a qualified maid, you must learn how to buy ingredients. The freshness of the ingredients will largely affect how the food tastes when it's finished. But I'm just a killer. Baby -5 whispered. If you are a killer, please take off your maid uniform. If you are not, then please take your profession seriously. Joel opened the door. You don't want your clothes to cry because of you, do you? Baby 5 was suddenly stunned like a thunderbolt. No one had ever told her that a career as a maid could be so important. Quickly coming back to her senses, she followed Joel's footsteps and walked toward the deck. A few seconds later, a pretty figure walked out from the shadow on the wall. Toshigi followed him on tiptoes and murmured thoughtfully. Have I heard similar words like, I don't want the clothes on my body to cry because of you? The weather at sea has been strange and changeable these days, so the warship stayed at the island's shelter for several days without sailing. Joel also acquiesced in this matter. At this time, he came to the market in the town and guided baby -5 on how to choose ingredients. The leaves of fresh cabbage generally look clean and crisp. Secondly, look at the roots. If they are light green or white, it means they have just been picked. If they are dry and shrunken, it means they have been left for a while. The same is true for tomatoes. Good tomatoes are mostly round in shape, with thin and elastic skin, and feel firm but not soft. Joel explained patiently while selecting various fruits and vegetables on the stall. Why does a vicious pirate know so many little details of life? Is he a pirate or a chef? Advertisement. Toshigi, who tried hard to disguise himself as a bamboo barrel, carefully poked his head out and watched the scene with black lines on his forehead. He's really pretty good, and he actually understands these things. Baby 5's eyes sparkled, and he inadvertently showed a hint of admiration, and his heart was even more touched. "Why are you treating me so gently? I was obviously sent to monitor." This feeling of being taken seriously gave her an unprecedented spiritual satisfaction. It was the tolerance and love that she had never received from her father and mother since she was born. A total of 3,100 Baileys. The middle-aged stall owner held the packaged fruits and vegetables, grinning with a missing tooth. "Pay it." Joel walked to the next booth. "Okay, sir." Baby -5 lowered his head, with a silly smile on his lips. After paying, he followed Joel's pace contentedly. "Why is this woman so happy?" Toshigi looked at the expression on Baby 5's face incomprehensibly. "It's obvious that what I bought is just ordinary ingredients, not a rare and famous knife. Apples are for sale, fresh apples, 1 for 300 pele, 3 for 1,000 pele." At a stall not far away, a figure holding a basket shouted feebly, "There are fresh apples there." Baby 5's eyes lit up. Under Joel's guidance, she had understood how to identify fresh fruits. Now in order to prove herself, she ran to the figure without saying a word. "I want to pick 3 apples by myself." "Choose whatever you want." The figure raised the basket with a sickly and wry smile. This, and this." After Baby -5 finished picking the apples and paid Bailey, he happily walked back while holding the apples to observe the color and fullness, and said happily, "These apples I picked must be very fresh. Very bad luck." The figure holding the basket looked at the maid's back and slowly got on the back of the sick horse beside him. "Maybe this is fate." As his feeble words fell, the extremely fresh apple in Baby 5's hands suddenly exploded like a time bomb. Chapter 37 Blackbeard Group Boom. The explosion without warning caused a sky-high fire and a deafening sound. The strong impact knocked the stalls aside tens of meters away, and countless flying fruits and vegetables rolled and fell to the muddy ground like rain. Pedestrians and stall owners looked at the explosion and were stunned for a few breaths, then screamed in terror and ran away. "What's the situation?" Toshigi exclaimed and quickly climbed out of the bamboo basket. Following the flow of people flowing out, he hid in the shadow of a house further away and looked towards the center of the explosion. "I saw a conical shield slowly emerging from the cleared dust." Baby -5 turned his arms and back into shields, wrapping his whole body, and slowly returned to his human form. Although she threw away the apple in her hand as soon as she felt the danger and tried her best to protect herself, the sudden close-range explosion still caused her serious injuries. "Ha ha ha." Accompanied by a burst of arrogant laughter, several strange and ugly pirates walked out on the roof in front of the field of vision or in the shadow of the alley. "I have always admired your name, Blood-Eyed Joel." A man with a few teeth missing from his mouth and a thick body of hair walked forward. He opened his hands and continued happily, "If you don't know me, please allow me to introduce my name. My name is Marshall D. Teach." Joel stood casually, waiting for the other person's next words. "Ha ha ha ha. Do you know, I have always regarded your bat fruit vampire form as my first fruit choice, but I waited for a long time and never got it. Later I changed my goal and captured it. Get this devil fruit." Blackbeard clenched his fist with his right hand, and the deep darkness rolled around his fist, and his laughter became louder and louder. "Now I know why the fruit hasn't appeared, but none of that matters anymore. Shui Tong, join forces with me, and we will divide the world equally." With uncontrollable ambition revealed in his expression, the turbulent darkness also continued to spread on the surface, seeming to swallow everything around him. "It's interesting. So far, you are the only guy who has said that he wants to join forces with me." Like a pebble dropped into the calm water, there were ripples called interest in Joel's eyes. He joked, "Well, I can give you a chance to become my subordinate and serve me. Is that guy planning to expand his power? Advertisement?" Toshigi listened from a distance, feeling a little nervous. "Captain Teach, it seems that the negotiation has failed." Van Oka looked at Blackbeard. "Isn't it time to fight?" Badger showed a generous smile. "I don't know what the result will be." "Is it fate?" Q sighed. As expected of a man who stood at the top of the world 100 years ago. Regarding the other party's rejection, Blackbeard was not angry or annoyed, but just showed a gloomy smile. "In this case, I can only try to take away your power." "Yeah?" Joel was opposite to the Blackbeard regiment who were actively preparing for battle. He calmly brushed his right hand from the inside of his cloak. "If you can escape from my hands today, I can choose to spare your life. After all, I am also looking forward to how far your huge ambition can expand in the end." "Ha ha ha. Dark water." In response to Joel's arrogance and rudeness, Blackbeard just laughed in response, and suddenly waved his right hand forward, the pulling power coming from his hand. In an instant, Joel was affected by a magical pulling force and flew involuntarily towards the darkness in Blackbeard's palm. But there was no surprised look on his face, he just nodded and said, "So this is Dark Fruit's ability?" The black hole-like ability can cause the person with abilities to lose their abilities the moment it comes into contact with them. It can be called the natural nemesis of all demon fruit powers. This is the first time Joel has come into contact with this ability so far. The moment he thought about it, he was already sucked by this pulling force to a distance of less than 10 meters in front of Blackbeard. However, just when the latter's face showed a proud look of victory, Joel suddenly raised his bloody right hand. Oh no! In an instant, swarms of blood-red bats as big as sparrows swarmed out of Joel's palm, entangled armament hockey and rushed forward. A large number of bats turned into overwhelming shadows, and were less than 10 meters away from Blackbeard in the blink of an eye. "What?" Blackbeard's pupils suddenly dilated. He hastily underestimated the opponent's reaction ability. At this moment, he hurriedly removed the power of dark water, turned around and ran away, shouting, "Hey! What's going on with these ghost things?" But this group of bloodbats that can independently seek out the enemy's blood is like passing locusts, constantly chasing Blackbeard. Advertisement wherever he passed, the walls of houses made of bricks and stones were easily chewed out with neat gaps like fragile tissue paper. Stalls made of linen and wooden boards were torn to pieces, and piles of fruits and vegetables were also torn apart. It was chewed until only the stumps and skin were left. "Let me help you, Captain Teach." Badgers grabbed the lower edge of the wall of a 3-story house. The muscles in his arms were twisted and veins were popping out. He shouted violently, lifted it up completely, and then slammed it into the bats. Crash, the stone powder fell, and the house weighing dozens of tons was mercilessly penetrated by the oncoming bats. It instantly turned into a pile of empty shells. After being stagnant in the air for a few breaths, it disintegrated into a shapeless shape. A number of stones fell to the ground like hailstones. But this blockage slowed down the attack of the bat swarm and gave Blackbeard a brief moment of respite. He turned around and opened his hands forward, looking at the bat swarm with a ferocious face. Dark cave path. The darkness on his body surged in all directions in an instant, completely covering all the bloodbats like a dark cloud over a city, and then swallowed them all. Ha ha ha. What an interesting attack. Blackbeard smiled triumphantly, and was about to use the power of darkness to compress and crush all the bloodbats in his body, and then release them. But suddenly he felt something and his expression changed. Hiss. A wisp of flame emerged from his chest, bringing with it a hot breath. Blackbeard fluttered his hands and quickly extinguished the wisp of flame, while shouting without any image. "It's so hot, so hot, so hot. Captain Teach, how are you? You must be injured, ha ha ha." Badgers watched Blackbeard absorb the attack, and couldn't help but let out a burst of teasing laughter. "Of course I." Blackbeard put out the flames, showed his incomplete teeth and was about to answer, but suddenly his eyes shrank and his expression became extremely distorted. The next moment, wisps of bloody flames shot out from all over his body, and instantly gathered together to form a blazing bloody fire. The wave of scorching fire that seemed to burn out blood caused even Badgers, who was 40 meters away, to subconsciously take a step back. The pirates of this era are really more restless than the last. Joel watched Blackbeard rolling around but still unable to completely extinguish the flames on his body, and then looked calmly in a certain direction. Whoosh! In the inaudible sound of breaking through the air, the bullets wrapped with armed colors came rapidly at an extremely tricky and concealed angle. Chapter 38 Blackmail Armament Hockey is divided into 4 stages: hardening, winding, external exposure and internal destruction. Being able to wrap it around a bullet is already a pretty good level. Even if you look at the entire paradise, few people can do this. Fan Oka, who was several kilometers away, moved his favorite gun, Qianlu, down, raised his hand to adjust the position of his monocle, and looked at the direction of the bullet. Even a user with advanced observation hockey would be hard-pressed to spot a tiny bullet flying rapidly from the sidelines when concentrating on the battle. This is the greatest value of a sniper on the battlefield, launching attacks at critical moments to change the direction of the battle. However, Fan Oka did not see the imaginary scene of the neutron bullet hitting the enemy. The scene reflected from the single-chip telescope made his heart sink. The man seemed to clearly perceive his presence and calmly turned his gaze, looking forward. With just a brief glance, he felt as if he was being stared at by a cruel and terrifying beast, and his heartbeat suddenly accelerated. And the next scene reflected in his pupils made him even more startled. The man raised his right hand, stretched out his thumb and index finger, and accurately held the bullet clamp less than 30 centimeters away from his head firmly in midair, as if he could easily pinch a peanut. The next moment, the bullet seemed to be impelled by some kind of force, impossibly exploding from the inside, making a crackling sound like a falling cannon, and then turned into countless metal shavings and dust falling down. That man was unharmed. As a sniper's most proud attack method, at this time, it is like a stone thrown on a calm lake. Apart from causing a brief ripple, it has no value at all. Armament hockey and observation hockey are both ridiculously strong. Fan Oka came to the conclusion with a solemn expression. He originally wanted to compare the other party with himself, but found that the comparison of disparity in strength had no reference value, so the second half of the sentence, "much stronger than me," was not uttered. After pondering for a moment, he put away his beloved gun, looked at the battlefield and thought, this battle can't be fought. The only thing we can do now is to execute Plan B, and escape. Just wait for Captain Teach to give the order, but... Van Oka looked at the battlefield with a complicated expression, looking at Blackbeard who was lying on the ground as exhausted as a dead pig, with streaks of white smoke constantly coming out of his body. Captain Teach. Badgers stood not far away, shouting anxiously, "Are you dead? If you die, none of us will collect your body for you." Captain Teach is not dead yet, but he will be soon if he receives a few more attacks of this magnitude. Advertisement: the ship's doctor, Poison Q, lay weakly on his horse, throwing the apples in the basket forward like a grenade, forming an invisible explosion barrier. He said to Badgers. "Badgers, go pick up Captain Teach and let's just run away. That man is so terrifying. My legs are already shaking just standing here." "It's your own problem that your legs and feet are shaking." Badgers complained while rushing towards Blackbeard. "Captain Teach, wake up quickly, you don't want the Blackbeard pirates to disband." You damn bastards, you dared to attack me secretly, now you have a taste of my anger. In the midst of the explosion, a loud shout suddenly came, and Baby Five's figure transformed into a dark barrel from the thick smoke, aiming at the pirates in front of him. Immediately afterwards, basketball-sized cannonballs were fired forward from the barrel one after another, and the attack range included all the pirates, including Blackbeard at the end. Badgers hurriedly picked up Blackbeard, whose flesh was a little burnt, and ran as fast as he could while being chased by cannonballs. I didn't cause this. Woman, that sick guy is the culprit who attacked you. As if it made sense, the gun barrel was instantly aimed at Poison Q and began to fire fiercely. Wait, Badgers, are you innocent? When I said we should take action, you were in favor of it. Poison Q kicked the sick horse under him hard with his heel, and quickly ran away, making a curve to avoid the bombardment. Badgers sneered. I have no idea what you're talking about, you rotten person. You're going to die sooner or later anyway. It's better to die early than to die later. I am still so energetic and have such a long lifespan. I am still far away from death. Q straightened his body quickly, but after just one breath, he slumped. The pirates bicker and chatter endlessly without the bonds of companionship. They are like a temporary thatched house that can be easily destroyed by any sudden disaster. Seeing that the Blackbeard pirates were in disarray, Baby-5 no longer cared about anything else, and only pursued Poison Q, pouring out firepower to avenge the previous attack. You, damn fellow, just sold the apple to me. Your companions don't care about you anymore. Now you can die for me. It's really rude to let a patient die. Don't you, a woman, have any sympathy for a seriously ill patient? Poison Q was making fang-like comments while swaying away on his sick horse. It looked extremely thrilling, but in fact he avoided the bombardment every time. In the thick smoke, Baby Five's figure chased deeper and deeper. Suddenly, a strong figure suddenly rushed out from behind her, jumped up, and slammed down with clasped hands. Stupid woman, you were deceived by us. We were not really arguing, but tactics. Advertisement. The shadow falling rapidly in the sky made Baby-5 jump in fright. She hurriedly transformed into a human body and rolled away. Boom. There was a dull sound on the ground, and dense spiderweb-like cracks appeared in the center of the place where Badgers hit hard, cracking in all directions. Before Baby-5 could react, a low voice came from the smoke and dust beside him, dark water. In an instant, the strong attraction made her fly out quickly. When she came to her senses, her neck was firmly grasped by a rough hand, making her unable to move. Ha ha ha. Blackbeard's laughter was no longer as wild as before, and his figure gradually emerged from the smoke. Although there were no wounds visible on his body, the smell of burnt meat and the disgraced appearance still showed that Joel had suffered great trauma from the attack just now. It was only because of the special nature of Dark Fruit's ability that he was able to absorb and digest the attack after suffering double the pain. He raised the limp Baby-5 high in the air and faced Joel with a ferocious smile. Shatong, your companion was caught by me. If you don't want anything to happen to her, I'll trade it with your life. How about that? The power in her hand became a little stronger, and red palm prints suddenly appeared on the maid's slender and fair neck. Yes, sir. Baby-5 was in so much pain that he could hardly breathe, but there was always a glimmer of hope in his eyes as he looked at Joel. Will he come to save me? Just like the handsome prince in a fairy tale, he rescues his beloved princess. I don't know whether it was the immediate danger to her life or the constant agitation of her thoughts, but the girl's heartbeat had never been beating so violently as it was at this moment. The robes rustled in the sea breeze. Joel stood there, looking at the maid held hostage by the pirates, and then said without caring. Partner? Have you misunderstood something? She is not my partner? Raising his right hand, the blood on his arm surged again, red pass. Blackbeard frowned and was about to say something. Suddenly he felt a strong crisis and ran sideways in an instant. Whoosh! The blood that condensed into a line shot out straight like a laser and exploded where Blackbeard was standing, forming a large crater with a diameter of more than 10 meters. Chapter 39. Black Hole. Don't you hold back at all. What a cold die. Blackbeard was panting and looking at the original position with lingering fear. Hey, this man has abandoned you. You are demon fruit power. Why not join my pirate group? He released his right hand and threw the maid, who had lost her hostage value, to the ground. Baby-5 knelt down on the ground in a daze, clutching her aching chest. The helpless feeling of being abandoned by her parents more than 10 years ago came to her heart. She tried hard to put aside the extremely messy thoughts in her mind, and seemed to remember something. She wiped the tears that kept rolling in her eyes, and her expression suddenly became much firmer. Don't think too much. My mission is to monitor this man, not to cry for this man. Joel walked towards Blackbeard indifferently. Are there any other moves? Use them quickly. This kind of battle really makes me unhappy. Blackbeard was still smiling, but the arrogant look on his face had disappeared. Soon, he couldn't even smile anymore. He felt that the man in front of him seemed to be getting serious. And this serious look means extremely dangerous. The ship's doctor, Poison Q, shouted feebly. Captain Teach, your situation looks very bad. If you continue to fight, you may fall into a coma, be seriously injured, or even be on the verge of death. Badgers glanced at Poison Q, who was about to fall off the sick horse at any time, and couldn't help but complain. You are introducing yourself. In a matter of seconds, Van Oka appeared next to Badgers from a tall building hundreds of meters away, and looked at Blackbeard. Captain, do you want to execute Plan B? That's all. but if you don't do something before escaping, your trip will be in vain. Blackbeard wrapped his hands in a thick and deep darkness. Bahas, Poison Q, you go to the shore to sail the boat first. Fanoka, you will be responsible for picking me up later. After saying that, he rushed towards Joel at a speed that was completely inconsistent with his pot-bellied figure, and the darkness in his hands suddenly rose like a flame, adding fuel. This devil fruit's most special ability in Logia seems to turn his body into a virtual black hole, pulling things in all directions. Gravel on the ground, trunks of trees, and broken bricks from houses kept flying towards him. Run away, Captain Teach's strength can crush bones. Drive, drive, Badgers and Poison Q screamed and ran away quickly. Advertisement Tashigi in the distance saw this and ran towards the warship. She wanted to tell Smoker the current situation. BABY5 was too frightened to stay. He pinched the bib tightly with both hands to create a circular outline and ran into the distance. Joel narrowed his eyes, and the condensed silk like blood surged out of his body, suddenly gathered in his palm, and shot out. Whoosh! It pierced Blackbeard's right shoulder like a laser, creating a violent explosion at the house behind him. Whoosh whoosh! Immediately following the first, red penetration, several lasers were fired one after another. Blackbeard tried his best to dodge, but several holes were still pierced throughout his body. The double pain caused him to sweat profusely and his face became twisted and white. However, as a conspirator who could hold back for decades, his endurance was far beyond ordinary people's imagination. The steps did not retreat at all, and the pain in his body continued to close in the darkness. Ha ha ha! Blackbeard smiled gloomily, and a mass of darkness in his left hand suddenly shot out to the side and left, and the mass of darkness hung in the sky like a black hole. At the same time, his figure did not stagnate at all. Instead, he raised his speed to ultimate, dragging the continuous black mist and turning into a black afterimage. Let you see the true power of darkness. Is it dark? The corners of Joel's mouth curled up slightly, and blood surged, covering the surface of his fist, instantly extending his entire arm, entire shoulder, and entire body. In addition to the blood evil, there are the entangled armament hockey and conqueror's hockey. He raised his eyes and faced the twisted darkness. At this moment, Blackbeard grabbed the void with his left hand, and the black hole hanging in the air suddenly swept from the side and behind. The two-way pulling made his speed exceed the limit and disappeared into the air. In a broad sense, it is a disappearance that cannot be captured by the naked eye. The next moment, Blackbeard suddenly appeared 1 meter in front of Joel and punched hard with his right fist. The black hole in his right fist connected his left hand with the small black hole that flew from the air. The three black holes overlapped and formed a giant black ball, which wrapped, twisted and swallowed the blood evil that was scattered on Joel like solar wind. Buzz. Advertisement along with a buzzing like tinnitus, all other sounds around the black ball suddenly disappeared, and the ground and sky became visibly distorted. The huge black ball quickly collapsed and squeezed. In just one breath, the diameter of the black ball covering 100 meters around it shrank by half. In the next moment, it compressed by half its volume and turned into a small black ball with a diameter of less than 20 meters. Tashigi, who was running towards the warship, couldn't help but look back. The suction coming from the center of the battlefield was getting stronger and stronger. Even though he was several kilometers away, the heavy pace did not slow down. Baby-5 struggled to hug the towering tree about a kilometer away from the black ball with one hand, and held it firmly with the other hand as if he was afraid that the bib would be sucked away. Even with my teleportation ability, I can't escape from the center of the black ball under that kind of pressure. What can that guy do? Fanoka looked at it from a distance and murmured in a low voice. Before he finished speaking, a pillar of blood rose into the sky and penetrated the black ball. In an instant, cracks spread on the surface of the black ball around the blood column. Blackbeard was knocked away from the black ball. He spit out a large mouthful of blood, stood up in a panic, and ran away with all his strength, shouting loudly. This guy is really a monster. Fanoka, use your ability to take me out of here. Being in the dark, the traction force had no effect on him. Amidst the rapid secretion of adrenaline hormones in his body, he had already run hundreds of meters in just 10 seconds. Fanao appeared next to Blackbeard in an instant, clasping the latter's shoulders tightly. The next moment, the two disappeared from the place and appeared further away. Boom! At the same time, the black ball penetrated by the blood pillar began to shake, and burst into pieces after beams of unstoppable blood light emerged from the cracks on the surface. The energy that was originally squeezed and collapsed was instantly released outwards, and a very strong shockwave took the shape of a huge ring, spreading rapidly in all directions, lifting everything away like destruction. The entire island can feel the vibration of this energy to a greater or lesser extent. The earth shook, and the waves along the coast surged, turning into waves of turbulent waves. On the warship anchored on the coast, Smoker spit out his burnt cigar, turned into a plume of white smoke and rushed into the air against the coast, catching the flying figure. Tashigi, what's going on? Yes, it's a pirate. Tashigi gasped and looked back in the direction of the island in fear. That man is fighting pirates. Chapter 40 Defeat. After the darkness dissipated, Joel still maintained the posture of clenching his fist and punching forward. After a few seconds, his body moved like lead. The darkness that turns into a black hole continues to collapse the surrounding space, causing the density at the center of the darkness to increase infinitely. The infinitely increasing density makes this space as if water vapor has solidified into ice, forming a static state where time has relatively stopped. It was in such a space that Joel and Blackbeard faced each other with a punch, and the latter was knocked away helplessly. At this time, the gravitational force of the collapse has been completely released to the outside world, and this twisted space has returned to normal. He is worthy of being a pirate who can make even red-haired men fear him. Even if he doesn't resort to conspiracy, his own strength is not weak at all. Joel looked at the scratch on his right hand made by Blackbeard and gave a very pertinent evaluation. Brushing the back of his right hand with his left hand, the wound healed quickly, scabbed, fell off, and returned to its original state. The powerful self-healing power is also one of the abilities of this devil fruit. He raised his eyes and looked toward the empty coast, with a dangerous arc at the corner of his mouth. However, you ran away without a trace after the fight. You really don't have martial ethics. A red light flashed in his eyes, and a pair of nearly 4-meter-long dark red bat wings extended outward from the inside of the cloak. The ferocious and wild wing membranes were wrapped around the windless and automatic blood demon like a silk ribbon. The bat's wings suddenly rose, and as soon as he stepped on it, it turned into a violent crimson wind, flying straight out like an arrow. Baby 5, who was affected by the shock, fell to the ground inelegantly, but she didn't care at all. Instead, she breathed a sigh of relief after feeling that nothing in her arms was lost. Suddenly, she felt an afterimage passing beside her. She looked up, only to find that there was only a small black dot left in her field of vision. "It's so fast, sir." She pinched her bib blankly, her eyes suddenly regained her clarity and she murmured, "No, that guy is just the target of my surveillance." The sea along the coast is rough. Blackbeard and Fanoka instantly panned and landed on the small, cramped boat. The weight of the ship was heavy, and it sank suddenly, causing a splash of water. As a temporary pirate group, they did not build a ship that truly belonged to them, and now they can only spend their time on this ship without a roof. But that's not the point. The point is that they have a common goal that is enough to support them moving forward. "Captain Teach, are you okay?" Advertisement Badgers patted Blackbeard's shoulder nonchalantly. Blackbeard was so painful that his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He coughed a few mouthfuls of strong blood and said angrily, "Badges, do you want to kill me?" "Captain Teach, how could I, who is so loyal, do such a thing?" Badgers quickly retorted. Because of the continuous activation of his abilities and the teleportation of one more person, Fanoka consumed most of his physical strength. At this moment, his face was pale and he was panting. "Poison Q, come here and check on Captain Teach's condition." Poison Q got off his horse, touched Blackbeard's palm, and said. The liver and spleen were ruptured, the articular cartilage of the arms was severely bruised, 4 chest ribs were broken, there were signs of burns all over the body, severe blood loss, and a fractured shoulder blade. If you want to recover, it is conservatively estimated that it will take more than a month to recover. The disease fruit not only allows him to infect others with diseases, but also gives him the ability to identify diseases. Whether it's internal or external injury, as long as he touches the body, he can immediately know the other person's condition. Is it so serious? Badgers looked at his hand in surprise. Did I do it? Fanoka rolled his eyes at the dumb-headed man. Poison Q continued. If it weren't for Captain Teach's dark fruit ability to absorb damage, the current situation would only be worse. Ha ha ha. But we escaped from that man. Blackbeard slumped weakly, lying on the boat with his arms spread out and laughing. Although the pain that came from his body from time to time made him frown and frown, the excitement on his face had not dissipated at all. Perhaps, Fanoka pushed the monocular telescope on his face and looked at the coast road solemnly. Not yet. What do you mean? Wait, you mean? Blackbeard suddenly jumped up and quickly followed Fanoka's gaze. Cold sweat broke out on his forehead. How could that guy catch up so quickly? I saw a figure hanging in the sky by the coast, and the cloak behind him floated automatically without wind. But fortunately, he didn't catch up across hundreds of meters of sea. The surrounding atmosphere was silent for a few seconds, and Badgers hurriedly paddled. Stop paddling, Poison Q. That's right, I mean stop paddling. I'll give you these 2 oars, and let your horse hurry up too. Move. Advertisement. The sick ship's doctor and the sick horse looked at each other. One held the oar shaft with his hand, and the other held the oar shaft with his hoof legs, exerting enough energy to slowly make waves on the sea. The boat speed was slightly faster. I said, I will spare your lives. Joel was like a blood moon hanging in the sky, his body emitting a ferocious and coquettish blood-colored light. The terrifying aura spread to the distance along with the waves. He was not happy or angry, but calmly raised the sharp bat in its half-animal state. Claw. Certainly, before he finished speaking, the bat claw grabbed out of thin air tore open the surrounding air. In an instant, a gust of scarlet sickle wind surged in front of him, turning into a violent windblade turbulence, rushing towards the small raft where Blackbeard was. The sea surface was suddenly shattered by the windblade, and waves surged up. Blackbeard gritted his teeth and stood up, opening his palms to release the darkness. But after the adrenaline hormone stopped secreting, his body became completely unresponsive. He staggered and fell down. In the blink of an eye, the sickle wind swept over and the solid blade cut on everyone. Amidst the screams, the overturned waves completely swallowed the raft. Then, the blood-stained sea gradually became calm. Joel landed on the shore, his appearance returned to its original shape, and he slowly turned back and walked back. If fate is willing to favor you, I will not stop it. A long time. A figure finally appeared on the completely calm sea. With a pale face, Badgers threw the unknown Blackbeard onto the disintegrated raft, then went down and fished out the sniper and the ship's doctor, who were all injured. Horse, my horse. The ship's doctor vomited out a large mouthful of seawater, regained consciousness a little, and said feebly, "Badges, my horse is gone." It seems that the ship is full of demon fruit power, which is not a good thing. Badgers complained, took a deep breath, and with his physical strength far beyond ordinary people, he got into the sea again. After a while, he fished out the sick horse that was shivering from the cold and threw it on the ship's doctor. The ship's doctor was hit and screamed in pain, and the seawater in his stomach spurted out like a fountain. Badgers looked at the ship's doctor, who had completely woken up, and said bluntly, "Poison Q, if Captain Teach's life cannot be saved, we can disband on the spot." The ship's doctor didn't answer, he just looked at Blackbeard and let out a long sigh. Chapter 41 Ace, the injury is not serious, right? Joel retraced his steps and stopped in front of BABY5. It's not serious, it's weird if it's not serious. The maid suddenly became furious when she thought of the scene just now. Although I am here to monitor you, I have served you attentively for a few days. But just now you wanted to kill me too, which was too indifferent. Fortunately, I have finally developed a sense of identity with you. You seem to be fine. Joel knelt down and patted the dust on Baby Five's clothes very gentlemanly, but it is very dangerous to stay around me. The delicate and gentle movements and tone made Baby Five's heart tremble. Is this man comforting my mother? Could it be that he knew my mother's purpose and that there was a thick and insurmountable barrier between me and him, so he just said those words and did those things on purpose to drive me away? He is really so gentle. Baby -5 suddenly burst into tears. She took out what she had hidden in her bib, raised her tear-filled eyes, and narrowed her eyes into a crescent moon with a knowing smile. Master Joel, this is the tomato just now. This is something she must protect even if she is injured. Because this was what Joel personally selected for her, even if it was just tomatoes, it meant a lot to her. This tomato is full of fingerprints and dust. It is no longer a very good ingredient. Joel stood up calmly and patted the maid's shoulder gently. Don't worry, I will teach you how to identify whether the ingredients are fresh next time. Okay, it's time to go back. Baby Five's face suddenly stiffened and her tears stopped abruptly. No, it's not about the ingredients at all now, okay? UB********** D still doesn't know what I care about. What I care about is the commemorative meaning contained in this ingredient, the beautiful memories shaped with patience and gentleness. Advertisement, not some bullshit ingredient identification method. It took a long time for Baby -5 to come back to his senses. He looked at Joel's figure walking away and raised his hand to throw away the tomatoes. But in the end, he couldn't make up his mind, so he put the tomatoes back into his bib with great care, and then he followed Joel's steps with great enthusiasm, muttering angrily, "What a stinky man who plays with girls' hearts." After reading the newspaper that day, Smoker finally knew Joel's true identity and understood why the department valued this man so much. He grew up in Lobetown. East Blue, which is known for its peacefulness, is run by the world government. Most East Blue people, including him, do not understand the various things that happened in the distant past. With the exception of Roger the Pirate King, even the actions of Long, a revolutionary born in the East Blue, have been covered up by the day-to-day singing and dancing, not to mention the rumors that are older. Whether it was the Celestial Dragon's tragedy known as Twilight of the Gods, or the destruction of Marineford, the ink of these histories was repeatedly painted over with flawless white paint until no one cared. After entering Naval Headquarters, Hina, a cheerful and talkative fellow student, has already been able to get everything done and is familiar with all kinds of marine internal information. However, because he was not good at managing interpersonal relationships, he became a marginalized figure who was demoted by Naval Headquarters. Therefore, the knowledgeable Hina discovered the resurrection of the blood pupil, but he could only learn about the distant story about the blood pupil from the newspaper. Every time he thought about this, he couldn't help but reflect on himself. It's not that he is jealous of this contemporary student with whom he has a close relationship, but that he has thoroughly understood the importance of power through each incident. Only with more power will he have the opportunity to move closer to the center of the Naval Headquarters and realize greater ambitions. At this moment, with a cigar in his mouth, he led a group of Marines to board this troubled island to check the situation nearby. Thick tree trunks were broken at the waist, houses were damaged and roofs were broken, and the ruined scene all around looked like it had been swept by a typhoon, which made him frown deeply. No matter who he is, the pirate who dares to fight against Shui Tong will definitely not be an unknown person. But judging from the intelligence fed back by Dashigi, it should be an unknown pirate group with no reward list. Another new pirate who rises up like Straw Hat. Smoker took a breath silently. He helped up an old man who fell to the ground with a broken bone because he ran too hastily. He ordered the accompanying ship doctor to apply ointment to treat bruises and then asked, "Old man, have you seen clearly what kind of pirate is fighting that handsome, tall man?" "I see clearly." Advertisement Marine's help made the old man look grateful. When he heard the general's question, he couldn't help but recall the horrific hell-like scene just now, and he couldn't help but tremble with fear. They were a group of strange and ugly pirates. The leader among them had fluffy hair and a few teeth missing from his mouth. "Does it look like this?" The man with black hair, a madara on his cheeks, and a red bead necklace hanging around his neck held a portrait of a human face and asked the old man who was sitting on a chair and wearing a bandage. He returned to the paradise from the New World and came to the Drum Kingdom to start tracking the whereabouts of Blackbeard. It has been more than a month now, but Teach has still not been found. No, that's right, it's him, this pirate. The old man looked at the portrait and nodded quickly in response. Although 5 full days had passed since that battle, he could never forget the scene of darkness and blood. Even if I sleep, I can't escape the scenes that can't help but pop up in my mind. Knew it, the man put away the portrait. Then do you know which direction he went? I'm not sure exactly, but... The old man hesitated for a moment, looked around and saw no one around, then lowered his voice and said, I heard that the pirates seemed to have been seriously injured. They seem to have been hiding in a village in the east to recuperate. They just robbed a fishing boat and left the island 2 days ago. To the east. The black-haired man looked east, then turned back and bowed very politely to the old man. Thank you for the news. You are welcome. At the man's courtesy, the old man nodded and asked curiously, but young man, you don't look like a marine. Why are you asking about that pirate? If Marine asked him about it a few days ago, he wouldn't be surprised at all. But why is the young man in front of him so interested in pirates? Is he a bounty hunter? Because, the boy pressed the orange cowboy hat on his head with his right hand, and wisps of flames suddenly appeared on his body, like the unquenchable anger in his heart. Only this B*********** D who killed his family is unforgivable. Even if I chase him to the end of the world, I will take Teach back and hand him over to Dad for trial. Chapter 42 2 East Blue Pirates. There were sparkling waves on the sea, seagulls fluttered their wings in the sky, and a pirate ship in the distance made waves and slowly approached. The atmosphere on the Peakatop, a pirate ship that arrived on the Grand Line from East Blue, is quite dull. The pirates in bright and strange clothes, or acrobats, were bored and performing their duties. The boredom on the sea these days made them miss the intoxicating banquet they had before. Captain Buggy, do you want to read the newspapers of the past few days? I heard that some great pirates from the past were also published. Chief of Staff Kabaji stood at the door of the captain's cabin with his back against the wall and a newspaper casually in his hand. What a big pirate, what does it have to do with lousy? There is only one thing I care about most right now, and that is Captain John's treasure. Buggy detached his head in displeasure and roared at his subordinate face to face before continuing to study the sea chart spread out on the table. Kabaji, didn't I tell you that no one would be interested in such distant things? Captain Buggy is not a patient person like us. You don't want to make the captain blush, do you? The animal trainer covered his mouth and whispered. Who are you talking about? I have a red nose and a thick nose. Buggy looked at the door angrily. There were 2 people and 1 beast standing at the door. The lion Leaky stood aside and picked his nose, showing wisdom in his eyes. Speaking of which, when can we have another party? Mochi quickly changed the subject. When he thought of the banquet, he couldn't help but think of the second captain of the Whitebeard Regiment, Fire Fist Ace, whom he met a few days ago. That guy's personality was quite interesting to get along with, but it was a pity that he seemed to have to leave due to some things, which also made the banquet end hastily and not enjoyable enough. The brothers on the ship, including him, couldn't wait to hold another enjoyable banquet. If you only think about the party every day, sooner or later you will be fatter than your pet who only knows how to sleep. Kabaji, who had never dealt with Mochi, sneered, Are you jealous of me? The trainer casually picked up the comb and delicately combed the fluffy hair, while the lion waved its fleshy paws menacingly, signaling that it was not just a pet. Kabaji was still sarcastic, but he heard the pirate running in a panic shouting. Captain Buggy, it's bad, a pirate ship is coming towards us. Pirate? Is Fire Fist Ace back again? Buggy couldn't help but exclaimed, and immediately put all his thoughts back on studying the charts. The last banquet consumed nearly a quarter of the food stored on the ship. If it were to happen again, all the food and drinks on the ship would have to be wiped clean. Advertisement, not Fire Fist Ace. The woman with a pretty face and a hot figure walked towards the captain's cabin carrying a heavy mace, followed by a man in a suit. The trainer and staff looked wary when they saw the man in the suit. Alvida, how could you, a woman, bring strangers onto our ship without your own permission? Buggy said with a gloomy look, didn't I make it clear to you that I am the captain of this ship? Don't worry, Buggy, listen to what he has to say first. Alvida said indifferently. Buggy cast his gloomy gaze on the man in a suit wearing gold-rimmed glasses and a slicked back hair. Captain Buggy, don't be so quick to get angry. The man pushed up his glasses with the back of his hand and smiled deeply. We are also pirates from East Blue. Shouldn't we look after each other and be more united and friendly? Who are you? Buggy narrowed his eyes slightly. East Blue's 100 Strategies Crow. The familiar face in front of him reminded him of the East Blue pirate who once had a bounty 1 million belly higher than his own. When he was still in East Blue, he had paid attention to Crow's reward list many times, but as the news of the other party's arrest spread, he no longer cared about it. As expected of Buggy the Clown, he is really discerning. The lenses on Crow's face flashed, revealing a deep smile. Are you interested in cooperating with me to seize the Blood Crown? The Bloody Crown. Hearing such a straightforward name, Buggy's eyes couldn't help but light up, and he stared at Crow and asked, what is that? A special treasure. It is said that whoever obtains it will have the opportunity to obtain a huge treasure comparable to that of a country. Crow pushed up his glasses. Comparable to a country. Buggy exclaimed in disbelief. If there is really such a huge amount of wealth, then the mere Captain John's treasure is not worth mentioning in front of it. He kept swallowing his saliva, but even such a huge temptation did not make him completely lose his mind. Instead, he became unusually sober. Advertisement, Basie Kellogg, No one would want to monopolize a treasure of this level. Why did you choose to cooperate with me? Tell me. He tried to see through Crow's face, but the latter just smiled slightly. Because we are both pirates from East Blue, there is a basis for cooperation between us. I recognize you, just like you recognize me. Is it just that simple? Then why can't we seize it ourselves? Standing at the door, Alvida put her mace on the ground and blocked the captain's room door from the outside. Mochi and Kabaji also blocked Crow's retreat with malicious intentions. After scanning the crowd, Crow pushed up his glasses and his tone gradually became colder. Did you not understand one thing? This is no longer East Blue. Do you really think that with your strength, you can continue to go smoothly in this Grand Line? Put aside your stupid ideas, fighting alone will only lead to complete failure. Only by cooperation can we continue to survive in this ocean. Crow hated being a pirate, and after all the pirate forces in East Blue that had bounties worth over 10 million were defeated and liquidated, Marine from the East Blue branch focused all of his attention on him. In the process of hunting and escaping day after day, he was completely tired of this meaningless life. So I chose to leave East Blue and go to Grand Line to seek a chance to change my look. Of course, during these days of struggle, he has fully realized how insignificant individual abilities are on the Grand Line. Only by joining forces can he have a chance to achieve his goal. There's nothing wrong with what you said. Buggy rubbed his chin, but of course, even if I fight alone, I can easily stand out in this ocean. That's right. The trainer took the words seriously and said, the Straw Hat Pirates, who have a bounty of 160 million Baileys, have only made a name for themselves. If the captain wants to defeat them, it will not be a problem at all. It's just that the captain is not interested in this now, the chief of staff added. You guys, you really know me very well, ha 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 ha, Buggy laughed exaggeratedly. Looking at the confused expressions of several people, a few blue veins popped out on Crow's forehead, and the corners of his mouth twitched slightly. So, have you decided to cooperate? Of course there is no problem with cooperation, but now that we have received such good news, what is our most important thing now, kids? Buggy gave a sly smile. Of course. Hee hee hee. Several pirates laughed in unison. What is it? Crow looked at everyone in confusion and pushed up his glasses. Of course, it's a party. Chapter 43 Friends. The wind is calm and the sun is beautiful, with no clouds in the sky. Joel blew the sea breeze on the deck of the warship for a while and then walked back to the room. If his judgment was correct, he would arrive at the Yag Islands within the next few days. This group of Marines is indeed doing a good job, rather than being passive and slacking off. However, I am afraid that in order to get rid of themselves as soon as possible, they want to reach the Yag Islands as soon as possible. Perhaps it is because of the generation gap spanning a century that this group of young people cannot have much in common with themselves. When he thought of this, Joel opened the door and walked in with some emotion. What came into view was BABY5, who was squatting in front of a chair with his back to the door, seemingly doing something. When she heard the sound of the door opening, she quickly turned around in fright, looked at the door with a pale face, and put her hands behind her back without showing anyone else. What are you doing? Joel looked at the maid curiously. No, not doing anything, she said covertly. Really? Joel raised his eyebrows slightly. I'm really not doing anything. Baby-5 stood up with a guilty conscience. Before she could say anything, she almost stumbled and fell. And her swinging arms were clearly exposed in front of Joel. But that's not the point. The point is that a strange creature is hanging on her right arm. This is, Joel couldn't help but be slightly startled. It was a leech that was almost as big as a 500 milliliters bottle of Coke. Leech. Are you so pessimistic that you have given up hope in life? He walked towards the maid who seemed to be losing her footing due to excessive blood loss. 500 milliliters of blood is almost 1/10 of the total blood volume of an adult. Taking out so much blood at one time is enough to endanger life. I'm not that pessimistic. Baby-5 pouted. It's just because it needs my help, that's why I do this. Joel said. Need your help? Of course, you won't understand. Baby-5 looked at the leech lying on his arm sucking blood, with a satisfied smile on his face. I have lived alone in the wild since I was very young. For a very long time, no one was willing to accept me. Even wild beasts would dislike me for being too thin and unwilling to eat me. Advertisement, but this creature needs me, they want to be with me, they are my friends. Scenes from the past seemed to flash through her eyes. That's not a good memory, but often what can be remembered for a lifetime happens to be suffering. Joel picked up the leech, and in Baby-5's stunned eyes, the blood flames swayed in his hand. In the next moment, the scorching flames burned out the life of the creature. Not even the skin was left. Well, I really still hate this kind of creature. Blood-sucking can only be a vampire's patent. He patted the thin layer of ashes on his hand and said, by the way, what were you talking about just now? The maid was stunned for a second, then turned into fangs and said, Are you a devil? I have said so much, but you haven't listened to a single word. Do you want to see what you have done? Looking at her friend floating in the air with the wind, she swore with tears in her eyes that she now hated the man in front of her. Can such a thing be called a friend? Joel brushed off the dust on his sleeves leisurely, although I have no say in this aspect. A relationship that only involves demands and no return means that the two parties can only be masters and slaves, not friends. Stop coming, I won't listen to what you say. A cold and heartless B********D like you must not even have a friend. Baby -5 said a little angrily. Friends. Joel was silent for a moment, and a memory fragment from the past suddenly flooded into his mind. Your Highness Joel. The maid, whose body was covered with dust and grass clippings, held the boy who was also dusty tightly and carefully squeezed through the crowd. Don't tell Director Ori when you go back that I took you to sneak out through the dog hole in the city wall. The last time I brought you an iced Coke, I was punished to wash dishes in the kitchen for 3 whole days. Don't worry, Iana, I won't betray my friends. The innocent boy rolled up his sleeves and showed off the slightly bulging muscles on his arms, and my illness has been cured. Look, I'm getting stronger now. The maid couldn't help but chuckle, and after a while she looked at the young man beside her curiously. Your Highness Joel, is that fruit really so magical? It can even cure your disease. The young man chuckled and said, after all, it is a devil fruit. It is said that it contains the power of demons. Not to mention such trivial matters as curing diseases, some devil fruit can also bring the dead back to life. The maid touched the young man's forehead, curled her lips and said in disbelief. Are there any other sequelae of that serious illness? Your Highness, you are talking nonsense again. How can someone come back from the dead? Ha ha ha, I knew you wouldn't believe it, but it doesn't matter anymore. Instead, the young man took the maid's hand and walked forward faster, happily saying. Advertisement, now I have mastered a new devil fruit ability. Let's go and see the new partner who signed a contract with me. Huh? Originally he just wanted to be tough, but seeing Joel's thoughtful expression, Baby -5 suddenly raised his eyebrows and showed a cheeky smile. I know that a guy like you can't have friends. At this point, I'm much better than you, ha ha ha. After so many days, she finally found an opportunity to ridicule the B******** man in front of her who was not understanding at all. It's really so enjoyable. Joel slowly came back to his senses and raised his eyes that were calm again. There was no refutation of Baby 5's words. He just suddenly stretched out his right hand, held the opponent's chin, and met the opponent's somewhat panicked gaze, with a slight arc at the corner of his mouth. Hey, wait, you. Baby -5 stumbled at the other party's sudden move, and quickly looked away, not daring to look at each other, feeling like a deer in his heart. What does he want to do? Why are we getting closer and closer? Oh my god, he seems to have a strange smell. No, now is not the time to think about such things. Could it be that he was so angry that he wanted to shut my mouth? Etc. Doesn't that mean that my first kiss will be taken away? Thinking of this, Baby 5's cheeks couldn't help but feel hot, and his breathing became a little quick. Did you just say that I have no friends? So what? Feeling the rush of male hormones, Baby 5, who had never experienced such a big scene before, showed a determined expression as if he was waiting for death. No matter what you do to me, I will never give in to you. Even so, there was a hint of expectation in his eyes. Joel slowly approached Baby 5's red cheek and breathed an unusually cold breath into the latter's ear. You're right, I have no friends. The sound was very soft, so soft that Baby -5 could just barely hear it. She was stunned for a moment, and when she came to her senses again, the other party had already silently left her side, leaving only a quiet and gloomy back. Why is there an indescribable sadness? What kind of past does he have? Baby -5 stared blankly. Chapter 44 Kingdom of Yag. After a 2-day voyage, the marine warship slowly sailed into a port on the Yag Islands. This journey ends here, then, thank you for the hospitality. Joel came to the shore, nodded slightly towards the Commodore on the warship, and then continued to move forward without any pause. Baby -5 followed closely behind. Watching the two figures leave, Smoker frowned and took a long breath of smoke. It's finally over, should we head back, Smoker Commodore? Tashigi also breathed a sigh of relief. Seeing this oppressive legendary pirate every day, she felt that her mental endurance had grown a lot. Return. Smoker glanced at the simple-minded ensign under his command from the corner of his eye. It's not that simple. They just left our ship. It doesn't mean that our actions have stopped. Hey, isn't the operation over yet? Tashigi was stunned. Continue to monitor his movements. Before we can figure out his purpose of coming to this island, we need to stay here. Smoker's eyes sharpened. Do you understand? Tashigi came back to his senses and straightened his back quickly. Yes, Smoker Commodore. The kingdom located on the Yag Islands has developed prosperously since its establishment 100 years ago, and the towns are now quite prosperous and lively. The streets are busy with traffic and the flow is constant. There are so many clothing stores here. This pleated skirt looks great, and that black shirt is also good. Baby -5 looked at the various clothing stores on the street with a surprised look on his face. He wished he could put his eyes into the transparent glass of the display window and carefully look at the well-made and meticulous women's clothing. The textile industry has been a livelihood here for a long time, and it is not surprising that a clothing industry that is more in line with the aesthetics of the superstructure has emerged. Joel looked at the shops with people coming and going and nodded sincerely. However, the development here is really good. What was once a desolate little village can now become the capital of a country, which really makes people feel that times have changed. Baby 5, who was focused on the clothes, didn't listen to what Joel was saying. He just moved his steps little by little, reluctantly moving his eyes from one piece of clothing to another. Although there are many clothing stores in Dressrosa, after all, in a country with military factories as the mainstay of its economy, the clothing industry is not developed, and it is completely different from the dazzling array of clothes here. Advertisement: no lady can resist the temptation of a pretty little dress, and this maid in her early 20s is no exception. 1, 2, 3, 6 zeros, and when she glanced from the clothes to the hanging sign, and after counting in a low voice, her eyes suddenly widened and she exclaimed. 3 million Baileys. A piece of clothing actually costs 3 million Baileys. Even though it looks good, it's too expensive. Although she is a cadre of the Don Quixote family, no one's family's money comes from strong winds. Even if Doflamingo is engaged in the arms business, the monthly pocket money allocated to her is only about 1 million Belly. The price of such a piece of clothing that doesn't cost much is enough to cover her 3 months' pocket money. As someone who was fairly familiar with the Don Quixote family's industry balance sheet, she simply couldn't imagine it. There is actually a business that is more profitable than arms. The gorgeous and fashionable ladies lingering in the shops all looked at the maid, who seemed to have come from the countryside, covered their mouths and laughed softly. And soon, their eyes were attracted by Joel next to the maid, and their hearts were so moved that they couldn't help but smile charmingly, and winked at this elegant and noble man, but all of them were ignored by Joel. Seemingly being attracted by Baby Five's shout, a man with a star symbol printed on the corner of his eye came over and said politely, "Madam, it seems you don't understand the true value of these clothes." "Hey, what's the value?" Baby -5 was startled by being accosted by a stranger and couldn't help but stop. The value of clothes does not just depend on the material itself. An excellent fashion designer will use pen and ink to outline a unique design draft only when inspiration strikes. Then correct and change the colors until you are satisfied. This is the value needed to squeeze out inspiration. The man looked at the half-understanding look on Baby Five's face and continued. When the finished product he designed gradually became popular and formed a unique and competitive brand, it gained brand value. After such brands have far-reaching and lasting influence, they have cultural value. In other words, these added values are the reason why these clothes are expensive. Oh, Baby -5 responded with understanding, but his eyes were still confused. Is this really the case? Joel looked at the man lightly. So, you are a clothing salesman? Advertisement: not really. The man looked at Joel, took 2 steps back, took out a small and exquisite crown from his pocket, put it on his head meticulously, and said seriously, "I am the prince of this country, Louis Starr." After that, he bowed respectfully to Joel. "Welcome to my country as a guest, Lord Joel." Joel said, "Do you recognize me?" "Yes, I have read that newspaper. Although the profile in the newspaper is not very similar to your front face, when I saw you just now, the inspiration in my mind was ignited, so I have no idea. I know without doubt that the man in front of me must be you." Starr pressed his index finger hard on his temple and continued. "Because I am a person with the ability to eat the fruit of inspiration, or inspiration person for short, and many of the clothes here are designed by me myself under the overwhelming inspiration. No wonder. These clothes are said to be so different. After all, they're still salesmen, right?" Baby -5 couldn't help but complain. "Starchow." Baby -5 responded. "No, most of the users of these exhibits are nobles and wealthy businessmen. We have signed trade agreements with the royal families of dozens of countries. There is no need to sell products to non-users who do not have the corresponding economics. You sell based on your ability. Humph, there is. What's so great?" Baby -5 crossed his arms across his chest in annoyance and curled his lips. "Do you think I would like these barely adequate clothes? After all, I am also a cadre from a big family. I don't care about it at all." Starr glanced at Joel, then bowed slightly to Baby -5 beside him and said, "Of course, as Master Joel's personal maid, if you have a style you like, I assure you that you can choose the clothes here until you are satisfied, without spending a pelle." Really? The annoyance on Baby Five's face suddenly turned into surprise. "Are you lying to me? There will be no good consequences for lying to me?" "Certainly." "Great." Baby -5 glanced at Joel, who showed no objection, and immediately ran into a nearby store happily, pointed at the clothes to the clerk, and then pointed at Starr on the street through the glass. "Since you are the royal family of this country, you should know the purpose of my coming, right?" Joel looked casually at the maid who was trying on clothes in the clothing store. "You came here for the blood crown, right? It has been here for so many years. It's time for it to be returned to its original owner." Starr smiled. "Of course, if you are willing to condescend, you might as well go to the palace and stay for a few days to enjoy the local customs. After all, it's all thanks to you that this island's former villages have become a nation." Chapter 45. Cleverness turns into plunder. Speaking of which, what did you do to make them be so polite to you? Baby 5, holding a large and small clothing box in his hand, raised his head and looked at Joel walking beside him in puzzlement. "It's nothing, it's just that we destroyed a certain pirate group entrenched on this island." Joel replied nonchalantly. "That's it?" Baby -5 asked suspiciously. "No." Starr, who was walking next to him, couldn't help but interjected. "That's not an ordinary pirate group, but the infamous Great Pirate Group more than 100 years ago. Captain Kia's bounty is as high as 340,000 Baileys. 340 million Baileys, this is a pretty high bounty." Baby -5 said in surprise. She remembered that young Master Doflamingo's bounty was exactly 340 million Belly. Although the two cannot be compared due to the difference in time and space, the gold content of this bounty can be seen to some extent. Starr continued excitedly. "Yes, the great pirate Kia's power is spread all over the sea. He is a great pirate that even the world government finds very troublesome. Under his high-pressure rule, most people can only live in confusion. It was not until Lord Joel appeared that all living people saw the dawn of hope, and a new order and a new country were established on the island. Joel yawned out of boredom. Is that so? I have no impression at all. No, Master Joel, you are the savior of this island. Star said with admiration, without you, there would be no Yag Kingdom today. Savior. When Joel heard this touching word, he suddenly felt a little harsh. If a savior can appear in the kingdom of Herman, perhaps it can still stand in this world today. And I will spend my life as a king instead of experiencing the feeling of losing my blood relatives, country, and people. After getting rid of the memories that should not exist in my mind, my emotions quickly returned. Joel's face became lazy again. As the crown prince of a country, Star's journey did not cause any sensation. This prince who was close to the people probably often traveled under the rule. As he himself said, if he lives in the palace all year round, his inspiration will become more and more blocked. Only by walking around more and seeing more things will the inspiration in his mind accumulate more and more. Follow Star and come to the castle palace. After the old king saw Joel, he walked down from the throne with tears of gratitude. Star supported his father and thanked Joel again and again. The emotions shown by both of them were very sincere and not just a polite act. Advertisement Joel calmly accepted the other party's thanks and said, so, what about the things I left behind? The blood crown is placed in the Kingdom Expo Pavilion, and I can take you there now. Star smiled and said, of course, we hope you can stay a few more days and let us entertain you with enough enthusiasm. Joel pondered for a moment and then agreed, he didn't mind taking a rest here after a tiring journey these days. Several figures wearing brown hoods walked quickly through the streets of Yag Kingdom. Captain Buggy, do we really want to take action today? The animal trainer Mochi, who was a little out of shape and had a slightly protruding belly, asked cautiously. Don't reveal my name, you idiot. Buggy hit the trainer hard on the head, then looked around warily. Seeing that no one noticed him, he breathed a sigh of relief. He cooperated with Beiji Crow and came all the way to this country in order to obtain the legendary bloody crown that could rival a country. After observing here for a few days, they discovered that although the expo hall where the Scarlet Crown was placed was always heavily guarded because it was close to the castle, it would be open to the public regularly. This information was enough for them to finalize their plan to seize this treasure. In order not to attract attention, the selected elite pirates dispersed into several small teams, departed from the hidden port, and finally gathered at the expo hall. At this moment, Buggy is acting together with two cadres, Kabaji and Moki, approaching the expo exhibition hall. Kabaji looked at Mochi and said, while the captain was discussing the plan with Beiji Crow, you stupid pig must have fallen asleep again. If you missed today and want to wait until the expo opens, it will be the opening day next month. Do you want us to spend another month here? Yes, we must get that treasure today. Buggy straightened his back, his eyes showing determination to win. But the next moment, he shrank his neck warily, fearing that someone would reveal his identity. While whispering in low voices, they moved forward. About half an hour later, the majestic Kingdom Castle appeared in sight. And this also means that we are about to arrive at the expo hall near the castle. Crow, who had changed into a black butler's uniform, was already waiting here. He pushed up his gold-rimmed glasses, looked at Buggy, and followed the flow of people into the expo. Buggy lowered his head and passed by the soldiers stationed at the door. Compared to Crow's appearance, his nose was really conspicuous and had to be covered up. The Yag Kingdom was only established for more than 100 years, and could not be compared with many countries with a long history. Therefore, in order to promote local culture and enhance national cohesion, our ancestors established the Kingdom Expo Exhibition Hall and placed various items of great commemorative and historical significance in it for all people to visit and understand. Advertisement. This is why there are monthly expo and exhibition hall open days open to everyone. The interior of the exhibition hall is plain and simple, without any excessive decoration, just rows of transparent glass display cabinets arranged neatly and orderly. There are items such as stones, costumes, sharp tools, etc., and an explanatory board introducing the names and commemorative significance of the items is placed outside the display cabinet. Where is the blood crown? Buggy muttered silently, glancing at the explanation boards next to the display cabinet. Walking all the way to the deepest part of the exhibition hall, he finally saw a large display cabinet surrounded by red police tape and guarded by several tall soldiers. What is placed in the display cabinet is an object with a semi-elliptical structure and a serrated top, resembling a crown. Under the warm light, it was glowing with a deep red light. On the explanatory sign outside the showcase, the 4 characters, Bloody Crown, are clearly written. Yes, that's it. Buggy's eyes suddenly lit up. Looking again, I saw Crow standing opposite the display cabinet, his eyes also deeply attracted by the Bloody Crown. Captain Buggy, is this the Bloody Crown? Mochi, who was following him, widened his eyes and exclaimed, it's such a dazzling blood-red color. After the words fell, Buggy's face was inexplicably clouded. He grabbed Mochi's collar and shook it, and asked sullenly. You B******************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************** No, I didn't, Captain Buggy, please listen to my explanation. Mochi hurriedly denied it, waving his hands repeatedly. Kabaji, please testify for me. I would rather. Kabaji's slightly trembling voice came, but now is not the time to talk about this. Captain Buggy, you should take a look around first. Buggy then turned around and glanced around, only to find that the soldiers guarding the display cabinet began to surround him. Wait, we are just ordinary tourists. Buggy quickly put down Mochi, rubbed his hands and smiled flatteringly at the soldiers. We didn't do anything against the rules, right? But the soldiers did not stop and gradually approached him. Kabaji swallowed and said, Captain Buggy, the hood on your head has fallen off. Buggy quickly raised his hand to touch it, only to find that the brown hood used to hide his face seemed to have fallen off due to too much movement just now, leaving only the pirate captain's hat on his head that had not been taken off. The disguise was exposed. This idiot. I told him not to make such a perfunctory disguise, but he didn't listen to my advice at all. Seeing this scene, Crow had a few veins popping up on his forehead, wondering if he should not choose this guy as his ally. It was a miscalculation, but that's what happened. Buggy simply stopped pretending, and showed 10 bright daggers between his fingers, just changed the plan, from stealing, to looting. Chapter 46 Survival from Desperate Situation. The crowd suddenly became commotion, and dozens of pirate figures who had entered the exhibition hall immediately rushed towards the display case where the bloody crown was placed. The soldiers responsible for maintaining order quickly sounded the alarm. Amidst the chaos, an excited shout came from deep in the exhibition hall. We succeeded. However, the owner of this voice did not rush out of the venue. With well-organized kingdom soldiers guarding all key passages, the venue seemed extremely small and cramped. Even just knocking down a heavily armed soldier takes a lot of effort. It's really difficult to deal with these guys. Buggy panted and retracted his split right hand. After teaming up with Crow to knock down dozens of kingdom soldiers, Buggy barely rushed out of the expo hall. See the light of day again. However, a steady stream of soldiers came from all directions and surrounded the entrance of the expo hall so tightly that not even a fly could escape. Acrobatics. Steam murder case. Kabaji rolled up a puff of smoke and slashed the rotating sword towards a soldier in front of him. However, the soldier held the shield in his hand and was only knocked back a few steps before he stood firm. Kabaji was stunned. The move he was so proud of didn't work. The physical fitness of these guys is probably as good as that of Cao Chong and his ilk in the East Blue Branch. How to fight this? Captain Buggy, what should we do now? We can't escape the encirclement at all. Mochi felt that Crow seemed to be staring at him, and immediately hugged the box containing the bloody crown tightly in his arms, and said anxiously. The other pirates also turned back to look at Buggy, the backbone at this moment. Shut up, you idiots who have never seen the world, you are just a few people. Do you think you can trap Uncle Buggy and me? Buggy scolded him expressionlessly, as if he had a plan in mind. As expected of Captain Buggy, as long as we follow Captain Buggy, we will definitely escape. Feeling Buggy's calmness and composure, the pirates became excited and excited. Crow shifted his gaze to Buggy dubiously. He had already made plans to snatch the box containing the blood crown from Mochi and use silent steps to escape from the battlefield. But at this moment, I was also infected by Buggy's confidence. Don't worry, this red nose must have a trump card. However, this look that everyone regarded as confidence was actually because its owner was so timid and panicked that he could no longer effectively control his expression, causing his facial muscles to become stiff. Advertisement. At this moment, Buggy was in a panic. What to do? The other party has a large number of people. If you delay any longer, you will definitely be arrested. Is this the end of my legendary life as Buggy? Is God going to kill me, Uncle Buggy? No. Buggy's eyes fell on the crowded distance. Suddenly, he saw hope. In the crowd, a tall figure standing out from the crowd walked towards this direction as if he hadn't figured out the situation yet. Beside that tall figure, several nobles in extraordinary clothes surrounded him like stars. There is no doubt that the identity of that man is unusual. Buggy's eyes suddenly lit up. This must be the key to escape. Etc. Did that man just smile at me too? No. Was he hallucinating because he was too tired? How could he smile at me? Buggy was surprised, blinked hard, put aside the messy thoughts in his mind, and made up his mind to give it a try. 4 winds and 5 cracks cannon. The 2 hands holding 10 daggers were raised simultaneously and pointed at the sky. Escape with flying knives. Boom. Under the incredulous gazes of everyone, the wrist and palm separated in an instant, shot straight into the sky, and turned into tiny black dots. And in the next moment, it fell sharply in a parabola shape like a sharp arrow shot from a long bow. Not good. Protect Prince Star. Protect Master Athos. The entourage beside the nobles suddenly fell into panic, and the formation became chaotic. However, just when everyone thought that this bizarre attack would be directed at themselves, 2 independent palms suddenly turned sharply in the air and rushed towards Joel unexpectedly. The dagger held between his fingers lit up brightly in the air and was pointed directly at Joel's heart. It seemed that if he took another step further, he would pierce his heart. What do you want to do, pirate? Cold sweat dripped down Star's forehead. Nothing should happen to the greatest hero in Yag. Advertisement. Joel's blood-red pupils turned slightly, and a subtle and interesting smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Suddenly, Kizaru learned how to tease others and raised his hand to show weakness. Oh, it's really scary. Is he playing some weird role-playing game? Baby -5 looked at Joel, and the corners of his eyes twitched slightly. My uncle. It seems that I made the right bet. Buggy breathed a sigh of relief, and then a look of excitement appeared on his face. The identity of that man was indeed the most extraordinary among all the people present. As long as he controls this man, he should be able to leave the country calmly with the blood crown. What is luck? That's his Buggy's luck. Buggy couldn't help but want to look up to the sky and smile, but he knew that it was not the time to relax yet, so he walked towards Joel arrogantly. If you don't want that guy to get hurt, just get out of my way. The surrounding soldiers were like a divided tide, retreating to both sides without daring to stop him. Crow walked behind Buggy, and the glasses on his face flashed with light. The rest of the pirates also showed excitement that, as expected of Captain Buggy, and strode after them. So in front of everyone, Buggy held the man in front of him, who was much taller than himself, and walked away in the direction of the port in high spirits. The surrounding kingdom soldiers had no choice but to follow him step by step without receiving orders from Star, not daring to advance rashly. Finally, Star gradually calmed down from the panic, and an inspiration came to his mind. Wrong. Master Joel is capable of destroying pirates with hundreds of millions of bounties on his head, so how could he be held hostage by a mere pirate? He must have other plans. When he thought of this, the sadness on the prince's face slowly disappeared. At this moment, Kabaji, the chief of staff of the Buggy Pirates, could not help but breathe a sigh of relief after experiencing this desperate situation. And the key to this twists and turns is, he looked at Joel, who was calm and composed, not looking like he was being threatened at all. Frowning slightly in thought, have you seen this man somewhere? Why, there is a feeling that I have seen it somewhere before. Thoughts kept popping up in his mind, and Kabaji's pupils suddenly narrowed. Does this man look somewhat similar to the legendary pirate published in the newspaper? Chapter 47. Turtle Pointer. Thinking of this, Kabaji could not help but tremble with his teeth. But soon, he calmed down. If it was that legendary pirate, how could he be kidnapped by Captain Buggy? The two sides are just slightly similar in appearance and characteristics, they are not the same person at all. He comforted himself in his heart. With the soldiers following closely, the pirates arrived at the hidden port where the pirate ship was parked. Buggy glanced at the kingdom soldiers who might surround him at any time, and looked at Joel with a fierce look. Follow us up too. Okay, I got it. Joel cooperated and boarded the Bikudop. The other pirates all boarded the deck one after another. Alvida, who was responsible for guarding the pirate ship, originally thought that this operation would not cause much noise, but when she saw the Black Sea behind Buggy, her brows jumped and she quickly asked the pirates to lower the anchor and raise the sails. No need to chase anymore. Star, who chased to the shore, ordered the kingdom soldiers behind him to stop the pursuit. After thinking for a moment, he waved towards the ship and watched Joel leave. As that royal family, waving goodbye, Kabaji, who observed this scene, wondered if he was dazzled and couldn't help but rub his eyes fiercely. Did I see it wrong? Mochi, who was suspicious of Kabaji's murmur, followed the other person's gaze and looked toward the shore. But apart from the kingdom's soldiers retreating like a tide, no other movement was seen in the field of vision. Just as Mochi was about to speak, someone asked him first, "What did you see wrong?" The two were stunned for a moment, then turned to look at the source of the sound. They saw a figure dressed as a maid beside the ship's rail, looking at the port. Suddenly, they took a few steps back in fright. Wait, who are you? What got on the boat? Oh, I came up with him. Baby -5 turned back and pointed at Joel expressionlessly. Kabaji looked back at Joel, and the bad feeling in his heart became stronger and stronger. The uneasy expression made Mochi panic inexplicably, thinking. It's obvious that he's out of danger, but what's going on with this guy Kabaji? Why does he look like he's in danger? Before he could think about it, Buggy's voice came over. Mochi, bring the bloody crown. Got it, Captain Buggy. Mochi quickly brought the box containing the bloody crown to everyone. After opening it, the bloody crown of unknown material emitted a bright blood-red light. It was more vivid than in the exhibition hall just now, as dazzling as glass under the light. Basie Kella, what should we do next to reach the location of the treasure through this bloody crown? Buggy suppressed the joy in his heart and looked at Crow. Blood, just a drop of fresh blood can activate it. Crow pushed up his glasses. Advertisement a month ago, while sailing on the Grand Line, he accidentally encountered a dilapidated shipwreck. Stepping inside, he found the captain's diary next to the skeleton in the damp and smelly captain's cabin. The pirate captain Red, who had a bounty of 60 million, wrote in his diary how to open the blood crown, and left a permanent pointer to the kingdom of Yag. Of course, if a sudden storm hadn't destroyed the pirate group, Crow would never have known this secret in his life. Blood. Buggy cut his little finger with a dagger, and couldn't wait to squeeze out a drop of blood, dripping it towards the bloody crown. However, the blood flowed down the bloody crown without any reaction. Buggy stared at the crown for a long time, then frowned and looked at Crow. Crow, you'd better explain. The captain's diary records that it must be the most special blood. I think it probably refers to a special blood type. Crow pondered for a moment, took the dagger in Buggy's hand, slashed it on his little finger, and squeezed out the blood. The bloody crown is the same as before, without any changes. Are you teasing us? Alvida said. I wouldn't do something so meaningless. Crow met Alvida's gaze calmly. I think Baji Crow, who was once famous in East Blue, won't be a boring guy. Buggy touched his chin and shouted, young boys, come here and give Lousy a try. If whose blood can activate this treasure, I will make him the deputy captain. Captain Buggy, X2 Kabaji and Mochi suddenly became anxious. This is the vice captain position that the two have been fighting openly and secretly for many years, but have never been able to officially decide on. But after hearing this order, the pirates' eyes lit up and they swarmed forward, pushing Kabaji and the two back. "I'll try. I'm coming too." Following the words, the pirates rushed to cut their fingers, dripping blood, staring in anticipation of the changes in the bloody crown. But then, one after another, they backed away in disappointment. "Look at me, X2." Finally, Kabaji and Mochi gradually squeezed into the dispersing group of pirates, but after a few seconds, they screamed like ghosts and wolves. "It's fake, there's no reaction at all." "Chloe," Buggy asked impatiently, "among all of us, isn't there one with special blood? If anyone can activate this treasure, can it still be called rare?" Crow pushed up his gold-rimmed glasses. Buggy touched his chin, thinking for a moment. Crow continued to analyze calmly. "The more difficult it is to crack, the more it means that this treasure has not been seized by anyone yet." Advertisement. "You're so right, Crow." Buggy nodded repeatedly, feeling happy again when he thought that he had the key to unlock this treasure. As soon as he finished speaking, a drop of blood fell freely in the air. Drop. The blood fell onto the bloody crown, which immediately glowed with blood-red light. All the blood that had been dripped in just now seemed to be attracted by a strange force, and it quickly gathered towards the center of the crown like 100 rivers flowing into the sea, suddenly forming a lifelike image of a red sea turtle. No matter how the ship's bow turns, the turtle's head always maintains the same direction, like a permanent pointer. "Hey!" Everyone looked surprised. "What happened? Didn't it say that only special blood can activate the blood crown? Why did something change suddenly?" Looking up, I saw Joel's calm expression and everyone's stunned eyes. It seems to be saying, "What's wrong with me doing this?" "Mochi, did you find it too?" Kabaji immediately turned to look at the trainer. No matter how slow his reaction was, he should have discovered by now that this man's identity was not simple. "Yes, I discovered that this guy's blood actually works." Mochi couldn't help but panic. "Doesn't this mean that my vice captain is going to be taken away by him?" "Hey, is now the time to think about this?" Kabaji's face suddenly darkened, but soon he turned his gaze to Buggy. If it were Captain Buggy, he would have seen the clues. It actually succeeded. It seems that the location it points to is where the treasure is. Buggy's eyebrows suddenly lit up, as he thought of something happy. As expected of Captain Buggy, you don't care about such an important thing at all. Kabaji glanced at Joel secretly, and reminded nervously, "Captain Buggy, but why did this bloody crown change?" Yeah, why?" Buggy came back to his senses. Crow pondered for a moment, then took over the words. "I understand, the so-called special does not refer to a certain type of blood, but refers to blood formed by mixing blood of different blood types." Buggy and others were stunned. "I see." Kabaji couldn't help but nod along with everyone, and reacted in the next second. "Wait, that's not what I wanted to express at all." He wanted to say something more, but suddenly the lookout on the ship shouted anxiously, "Captain Buggy, no, Marine is coming towards us." Chapter 48. Buggy must give Marine some face. Marine. Suddenly, everyone's attention was attracted by the standard warship in the distance. The warship seemed to have locked its target and came one after another. That Marine. Could it be? Alvida's heart skipped a beat as she looked far away. In the old Logue town, she boasted that her slippery fruit ability was so powerful that it could even slide away cannonballs, but she suffered a big loss in the first battle. The reason why all of this happened is the Marine colonel stationed in Logue town, the rare Logia devil fruit, and Smoker, the user with smoke fruit ability. Now, seeing this figure again, she couldn't help but recall the tragic situation when she was almost arrested and sent to prison. "White Hunter, why are you here, White Hunter Smoker?" "Buggy, he must have been chasing you all the way here, right?" Crow pushed up his glasses as if facing an enemy. There is no pirate in the East Blue who has not heard of Smoker's reputation. Even a semi-retired pirate like Crow occasionally pays attention to the turmoil on the sea. After being defeated by the Straw Hat Pirates, he also heard about the riot in Logue Town, and also knew that one of the troublemakers was the Buggy Pirates. Under such circumstances, he had to make this association. Did the famous White Hunter Smoker actually track Captain Buggy all the way? As expected of our great Captain Buggy, he is indeed a great pirate that even the White Hunter can't feel at ease with. After hearing Crow's inference, the pirates on the ship suddenly jumped for joy for some unknown reason. The heavy atmosphere just now was suddenly gone. Under the praise of the pirates, Buggy reluctantly smiled. Ha. Ha ha, of course, I didn't expect that guy Smoker to be so persistent in order to arrest me. As he spoke, he couldn't help but runny nose, but he quickly sucked it back hard. But under the calm appearance, his heart has already been violently ups and downs. That damn smoke man actually appeared in front of me again. There's nothing I can do against a guy with Logia abilities. What should I do? How can I get out? At this moment, a standard warship was confronting a pirate ship out of thin air at sea. Smoker slowly exhaled a breath of smoke. Not close enough, get closer, with only this distance, I can't see that guy's condition. Smoker Commodore, however, if you get any closer, you may enter the gunfire range of that pirate ship. Toshigi said hesitantly, it's just a few little pirates from East Blue. It's nothing to worry about. The key is. Advertisement Smoker's voice paused and his tone became serious. Why is that man on that pirate ship? What on earth does he want to do? Toshigi followed Smoker's gaze and finally nodded in agreement. Yes, I know. We will get as close to that pirate ship as possible. Aboard the Biku Dop. Captain Buggy, they're not getting any closer, do we still want to open fire? The pirate who had set up the gun mount and was ready to send the shells into the barrel looked at the anchored warship and asked. Of course we're going to open fire. Those Marines are obviously afraid of Captain Buggy. We need to show them off, but don't underestimate our Buggy pirates. One of the pirates said in an excited tone, have fun with you. Buggy couldn't help but slap the pirate on the head hard, suppressing the atmosphere that was gradually turning to joy. That Smoker didn't actually attack, which is a rare good thing. He won't actively provoke that guy. If he is arrested, he will spend the rest of his life in a dark and damp prison. But at this time, he looked at the pirates around him who were looking forward to it, and he had to assume the captain's posture and coughed lightly. Ahem. Since Smoker didn't take the initiative to attack us, it means that he is afraid of me, so of course I, Buggy, have to give him a face. After all, Marine also needs to be decent, kids, do you understand? Ah, as expected of Captain Buggy, there are indeed a lot of adults. Suddenly, the pirates looked at Buggy with more admiration. No, that's not the case. Kabaji took a deep breath and tried his best to calm down the restlessness in his heart. It was this man who caused the Buggy pirates to be targeted by those Marines. He must be the legendary pirate published in the newspaper. No, I must tell Captain Buggy about this. At this thought, Kabaji secretly glanced at Joel with the corner of his eye with great uneasiness. Unexpectedly, the other party noticed and looked at him with an extremely dangerous light in his eyes. Kabaji subconsciously shrank his neck, and after being stunned for a few seconds, he quickly touched his cold neck, and then breathed out in shock. Fortunately, the neck is still there, but, if you say it out loud, you will definitely die. Kabaji, what's wrong with you? Moki looked at his old rival who had competed with him for many years, and saw that his lips were tightly closed and his eyes were only blinking. Seeing this, he immediately sneered and said, is it because the sea breeze made your eyes dry? If your eyes are dry, just put some eye drops. Why are you looking at me? There is a slight vein on Kabaji's forehead. Advertisement, is that what I mean? What I want to tell you is that this man is very dangerous, but you just want me to drop the potion. Seeing that no one on the boat was aware of it, Kabaji could only suppress this thought in his heart. Since Marine has not approached and attacked us, let's move forward according to the instructions on the turtle pointer. Crow's mind was half on the warship not far away, and half on the bloody crown in front of him. He had no extra thoughts to care about anything else. That's right, the most critical thing right now is the treasure where the blood crown is. Buggy also said in response, looking at the turtle pointer with increasingly eager eyes. The legendary treasure that is comparable to a country is enough to fascinate all pirates galloping on the sea. Then Captain, what should we do with these two people? Are we going to? Mochi walked up to Buggy, glanced at Joel and Baby -5 who got on the boat, made a knife-like shape with his palm, and swung it across his neck. Mochi. When Kabaji heard this, he suddenly felt a little dizzy, and almost made the fastest reaction in his life. Didn't you see that the blood he dripped just now activated the blood crown? This shows that he has some secret connection with this treasure. If they are dealt with now, some kind of unpredictable disaster may occur during the treasure hunt in the future. How come you, a guy who usually has no faith, suddenly started to talk so much? Mochi felt a little strange about the other party's abnormality today. No, Kabaji has a point. Buggy rubbed his chin. The reason why he was rescued from danger today was partly because of Joel's identity, and the activation of the blood crown just now seemed to be inexplicably related to the other party. Even if it's just a coincidence, there's nothing wrong with continuing to take this man with you. Perhaps, this man will be of some use in the next treasure hunt. After many years of unsuccessful treasure hunting as a pirate, Buggy also subtly changed some of his thoughts. Although he didn't want to admit it, in his heart, he already had some recognition of the word, destiny. It's like Captain Roger got the One Piece, but in the end he surrendered to Marine. Destiny may be so illogical. Kabaji, you are responsible for guarding them and releasing them when you get to the location of the treasure. Buggy ordered. Yes. Kabaji nodded sternly, turned to look at Joel, a flattering smile appeared on his face, and he humbly led the way. Go this way, slow down, be careful of the steps. Kabaji, what happened today? Mochi murmured in confusion, turning his head to look at Lionleaky as if asking. The latter looked at him blankly, with a look of wisdom in his sleepy eyes. Huh? Advertisement Chapter 49 Endurance watching billions of points. 2 days later, a small island appeared in the direction of the Bakudop. The outer edge of the island is a golden beach bordering the sea. Looking far along the line of sight, you can see the lush forests connecting the golden sandy beaches, extending to the majestic highlands in the center of the island. When the pirate ship approaches the island, the ghost of the turtle pointer in the bloody crown flickered brightly for a few minutes. You can't be wrong, this is the location of the blood crown. Buggy grinned, showing an extremely excited smile. For the first time in so many years, his treasure hunting career has improved. Captain Buggy, your two officers seem to have something on their mind? Crow pushed up his glasses and keenly observed the depressed mood of Kabaji and Mochi. Buggy looked at the two of them and said with great enthusiasm, Hey, what's going on with you two guys? You actually made Lousy happy when I, Mr. Buggy, was about to find the treasure. Kabaji looked at Buggy and licked his lower lip while hesitating to speak, but never said a single word. He just lowered his head in a depressed manner. Captain Buggy. Mochi choked up a few times and then burst into tears. I suddenly remembered that my grandmother accidentally fell to the ground 30 years ago and died shortly afterwards, so I am extremely sad now. That's it. What a piece of shit. Buggy's eyes twitched. What nonsense are you talking about? Cheer up, lousy. Also, go and bring this guy over. Mochi stopped crying immediately and looked at Kabaji at a loss. But the latter quickly turned his head away and whistled with, "None of my business," written all over his face. Kabaji, let's go together, Captain Buggy said. Seeing that the other party was staying aloof from the matter, Mochi emphasized his tone fiercely and said through gritted teeth, "Let's go and bring that person over." Although Kabaji did not say anything superfluous and abnormal during the 2-day voyage. But through eye contact in the past few days and reading the newspaper, Mochi had already roughly guessed Joel's identity. The man they captured on the ship. He was actually the legendary pirate who dared to slaughter even the celestial dragons called gods. God knows if he will suddenly turn his back and do something crazy in a fit of rage. In such anxiety, Mochi had been squatting at the door of Joel's room without closing his eyes for 2 days and 2 nights. He was always waiting for instructions from Joel, for fear that the other party's mood would become unstable. Advertisement. He swore that he had never cared so much about his grandmother who passed away 30 years ago. What happened to these two guys? Buggy looked at the two figures incomprehensively. HMPH, it's probably because of their inferiority complex that they became like this. After all, in front of that sweetheart with an alluring temperament and appearance, their appearance was just like a painter scribbling with a colored pen. Alvida carried the mace and said with deep understanding. After all, although she was not as charming as she is now, and was only slightly beautiful, she still had this little trouble occasionally. Is that so? Buggy looked unnatural and touched the red nose that he had always cared about. He seemed to be able to understand the grievances felt by his two subordinates. Who knows that man's appearance is indeed a little more attractive than everyone present. But that doesn't matter, nothing can compare to his treasure-hunting exploits now. Putting the unimportant things behind him, Buggy waved his sleeves and said with great enthusiasm. Little ones, follow me and find the treasure. As a result, the pirates, led by Buggy, marched toward the center of the island. And behind this team, Kabaji and Mochi bowed and nodded beside Joel with unusually low eyebrows. Hey, walk slowly and be careful of the branches on the ground. Come on, let me help you move them. There are some bumps in the road ahead, so just step on me. The pirates who noticed the attitude of Kabaji and Mochi suddenly looked at each other. These two cadres are as obedient as sheep. Is it really still their Buggy pirate's most ferocious tiger? Could it be that some kind of devil fruit has controlled the brain? At this moment, Buggy's attention was completely focused on the blood crown, and he did not react at all to the humble actions deliberately shown by the two cadres. Only Crow looked back and thought thoughtfully. Why did the two leaders of the Buggy pirates go out of their way to get close to that guy? Is there some kind of secret hidden in him? Is it the real key to unlocking the treasure of the blood crown? Along the way towards the center of the island, they did not encounter any attacks from wild beasts, nor did they see any signs of human activity. Buggy and others moved forward unimpeded. It was so easy that even Buggy had cognitive doubts. There are no traps or guards. How could there be treasures in this world that could be obtained so easily? Advertisement. Could it be that this secret treasure of the blood crown, which has been circulated since 100 years ago, has actually been taken away by others? Or, he who can come here so easily is the protagonist with great luck in this era of hundreds of rivalries. Finally, the pirates passed through the lush jungle and arrived at the high ground in the center of the island. This is a huge and vast open space with no growing vegetation around it, as if there is an absolute invisible barrier separating it from the surrounding dense forest. The secret treasure of the bloody crown must be nearby. Buggy looked excitedly and nervously at the brightly shining bloody crown in his hand, and kept looking around. But wherever his eyes could see, there was nothing. Is there nothing? Could it be? Is it underground? Buggy took a deep breath and stared at Crow closely. Crow, you should know where this secret treasure is, right? Crow was not dissatisfied with Buggy's questioning. He just thought for a moment and then pushed up his glasses and said. In the diary that records the blood crown, there is only one description. What is it? Buggy asked. Everything you see is what you get. Crow slowly uttered a few words. Everything you see is what you get. Buggy chewed these words over and over again and looked around at the empty surroundings. Does this sentence mean that everything he sees is his? But, there is nothing here, no, this sentence should be just a meaningless distraction. After thinking hard to no avail, Buggy slowly brought his thoughts back to his usual brain circuit, and based on his many years of rich experience in treasure hunting on the sea, he made a judgment. The only way to verify where a treasure is buried is to look for so-called marks left by the person who buried it. No matter how much of a treasure it is, it cannot escape this iron law in the end. Just as he was thinking about it carefully, he suddenly heard a calm voice. It's here. Chapter 50. Wake up, old friend. Looking around, Buggy saw Joel half crouching. And his two cadres, like the gangster's subordinates, surrounded this man loyally, as if the other party was their captain. What the hell is going on with these two guys? Buggy was a little angry and walked over, but as soon as he walked over, he was deeply attracted by a red symbol on the ground in front of Joel that resembled a treasure mark. Before he could show his joy, the crooked red symbol suddenly glowed red, erupting with an astonishing momentum. At the same time, the ground shook without warning. What is happening? Is it an earthquake? The pirates looked in all directions in fear. It's time to wake up. Joel looked at the blood-red symbol on the ground with nostalgia and murmured slowly. The deed marks carved on his body are now gradually elongating and deforming as his body grows. Ouch! As Joel finished speaking, a deafening roar came from the ground. What the hell is that sound? Alvida held the mace and looked around in panic. Maybe it's some kind of monster that's hard to deal with. Crow pushed up his glasses with a hint of retreat in his eyes. He doesn't want to risk his life here yet. Since there are guards and the like here, it means there must be treasure. Unlike others, Buggy actually showed a look of joy. He firmly believes that nothing can stop a pirate from pursuing treasure. No, this sound is not coming from the ground. Alvida suddenly realized something and shouted. Isn't it coming from the underground? Where else could it come from? Crow showed a hint of surprise. Before he finished speaking, the ground shook even more violently. Mud and stone powder suddenly peeled off from the ground during the shaking. The lush branches and leaves in the lush forest in the distance made a squeaking noise in the sea breeze that was constantly being swept up violently. Directly below the ground, there seemed to be some kind of behemoth slamming the entire island, about to break through the ancient seal. Suddenly, the tide on the sea surface right in front kept rising. Advertisement: a huge columnar object like a mangrove tree on Saboti Island poked out from the bottom of the sea. 4 huge flippers slowly swam outward from the 4 corners below the island. That is, after seeing the whole thing clearly, all the pirates' pupils almost shrank, and they finally realized one thing. There is not some kind of monster sealed under this island, but the island itself is a huge creature. I finally woke up. It seems that you, like me, have been sleeping in this sea for a long, long time, old friend. Joel looked up at the huge head, which was many times larger than it was 100 years ago, and a faint smile appeared at the corner of his mouth, like an old friend reunited. More than 100 years ago, when he was still the crown prince of the kingdom of Herman. He once accidentally picked up a turtle egg drifting in the sea, and then he hatched it using the warmth of his blood. After these long years, the little turtle that could lie on the shoulders in the past has now completely grown into an adult body as big as an island. Ouch! After seeing Joel, the island turtle howled with great joy. Even though it has not seen him for 100 years, under the blood contract, the sense of belonging and obedience reflected by the marks made it instantly recognize its master. Hey, this is incredible. How can there be such a huge creature in this world? After witnessing such a strange yet spectacular existence, the pirates' minds were completely empty, leaving only incomparable shock. Everything you see is what you get. Crow looked around the entire Turtle Island in all directions, and suddenly said with enlightenment, so, is this the so-called treasure that can rival a country? What could be more valuable than an island that can be inhabited and move freely on this sea? This is worthy of being called a treasure. Moreover, it is a truly priceless treasure. Of course, the prerequisite for this is to obtain the allegiance and surrender of this island turtle. Chloe, don't make boring inferences. Even though he vaguely noticed something, Buggy still refused to give up and insisted, the treasure of the blood crown must be buried somewhere on this turtle island. Be Captain Buggy. Kabaji tugged on Buggy's clothes, swallowed and whispered, but compared to the treasure, don't you think that man's identity is more problematic? Mochi on the side immediately nodded in agreement like a chicken pecking at rice. What's the problem? Even if there is any problem, it's not more important than the treasure of the blood crown. Buggy held the bloody crown in his hand and shouted stubbornly. Advertisement: this is the closest he has ever come to a legendary treasure. If he just negated everything he had done so far, he would really not be willing to do so. Are you talking about the bloody crown? Hearing the excited shouts behind him, Joel couldn't help but turn around and look at Buggy, with a hint of teasing in his eyes. That thing is actually just a broken turtle eggshell, but as the only companion creature, I used it as a medium to sign the blood contract. As for the so-called treasure, it is just a legend passed down by rumors. How could be? Buggy looked at the blood-colored crown in his hand that gradually lost its bright color and turned into an ordinary eggshell, and couldn't help but murmured absent-mindedly. Suddenly, he woke up from his dazed state, and immediately realized that something was wrong, and seemed to understand the abnormal behavior of Mochi and Kabaji in the past 2 days. But at this moment, I could only bite the bullet and ask, who are you? Then, let me introduce myself. Joel took a leisurely look at all the pirates present, and a frightening red light flashed in his pupils. My name is Joel, but others like to call me Shui Tong. Sure enough, he is Shui Tong. Kabaji and Mochi completely let go of their past grievances at this moment, with tears streaming down their cheeks and hugging each other tremblingly. Although they already knew it, hearing the other party reveal their name with their own ears, their fragile hearts were still strongly stimulated, and they felt that they were about to die. Blood Eyes. For a moment, Buggy seemed to go back to the last time he heard this name. At that time, after joining Roger's pirates as an intern, he entered the captain's room for a visit with Roger's permission. When he saw the vague reward list hanging on the wall, he couldn't help but ask Captain Roger, who was the man on the reward list. Captain Roger laughed and said, him? His name is Shui Tong, and he is a willful B*********** D pirate who wants to turn the whole world upside down. However, if possible, I really want to go back in time and see that man with my own eyes. Ha ha ha. Even after many years, Captain Roger's words still echoed clearly in his ears. But at this moment, this man whom Captain Roger had never seen before his death was standing in front of him alive. This is luck, or what about misfortune?